Good evening. Welcome to the Wareham Board of Selectmen's meeting, April 15th, 2014. Mr. Clerk?
Roll call. Mr. Titlebaum, Ms. Whiteside, Mr. Holmes, Mr. Slave, and Mr. Tropiano, all present, as well as Town Administrator Derek Sullivan.
Announcements?
Announcements, anybody with announcements? We'll start down there. Peter.
Yeah, just a couple of things. First off, a reminder that on Saturday the 19th, the YMCA is doing its swim-a-thon. So if you want to get wet, jump in the pool and go swim to raise money to help the Y out. They're not calling it a scholarship drive anymore, but I'm assured that most of the money goes to provide access to people who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford to send their kids to the YMCA. So that's something for a good cause. The second thing, today, the first annual Lane Bilodeau Award was handed out down in the Council on Aging at noontime. Mr. Sullivan and I had the privilege of attending, and we're pleased to announce that the first recipient of the annual Lane Bilodeau Award was the late Lane Bilodeau himself posthumously. Couldn't have been a more fitting person for that kind of award, and any subsequent winners have a lot to measure up to. It was a very nice ceremony. And once again, we're grateful to Mr. Bilodeau for his service to the town.
Ms. Whiteside.
I'm saving mine until the item on the agenda.
I have nothing. Mr. Holmes.
Thank you very much. You know, the past few days have seen some beautiful weather in town. Much more cleanup is on the way. Mr. Menard is on vacation, so I'll ask Mr. Sullivan to follow up on the question that I'm getting now, including from myself. What do we do with the sand? So maybe if we could get an answer for next week. There's a lot of participants who are willing to sweep our own sand, but what do we do with it? What? Oh, good. Okay, so it'll come up later. I did, right? Yeah, because he got out last week without me asking him that question. So I do want to speak to a kind of a very disgusting issue as well. I received a letter Thursday, two actually, but the one that was really disgusting was some idiots, and I won't use Mr. Titlebaum's vulgar language, some idiots decided to spray paint a child's playground out in Shangri-La. And a gentleman sent me a picture of the disgusting, vulgar language that these people put on a kid's playground. So Saturday, I know Mr. Menard got my letter late. I went out there with a spray can of paint to cover up this disgusting, vulgar creativity that someone decided to do. I was just telling Patrick, you know, there were 3 little kids playing there, 2 mothers actually riding around on this thing, going in circles sitting on top of that stuff. When I got out to spray paint, the mother actually got up and said, "Sir, do you mind if I help you with that? I've had to do this several times here." You know, you're going to get caught. And when you get caught, I can tell you that the chief will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. And with the language that was on that child's go-round, you can get into very serious trouble. There were F words and P words and C words and N words. That goes to more than just what do you call that?
Could be a hate crime.
What do you call that? There you go, Patrick.
Violation of civil rights.
You get caught writing those kinds of things on it's more than just vandalism. It's very disgusting. So here's the deal. Send me an email or a text message. Most people have my cell number. Send me an email if you see anything like that, especially in kids' playgrounds. And we'll make sure that we get out there and cover that stuff up. It's very difficult for 5 of us or 6 of us sitting here, Mr. Menard, even, Chief Walsh, to see every single little thing that's done like that. So, we're all in this together as citizens. If you see it, report it to somebody. Send me an email, call Mr. Sullivan's office, call our office, call the chief, call Mr. Menard. If you don't report it to us, chances are we're not going to know it's there. So tonight, I did visit some other local businesses on my business tour, but I really think that that's something, especially now, where the summertime's coming, and those little kids, thank God that they were too young to spell, or they would have realized that what they were spending around on. So that's pretty disgusting. But on a lighter note, we did hit 70. The golf clubs are swinging beautiful. There were tons of people out playing golf, and the beach looked pretty busy. The parking lots are getting full. Mr. Sullivan, parking lots getting full down there in Onset. I did get slapped around a little bit at the swearing in of the chief, the fire chief in Onset the other night, and congratulations to him. He's going to make an excellent chief. People really have a lot of respect for him. It was kind of sad for those of us who've been in Onset for a while, because, of course, the reason he is the chief is because, how he passed away. But it was kind of bittersweet, but he will do a great job down there. But I did get kind of slapped a little bit because of the parking. And why aren't we charging people to park? I said, don't worry about it. We're getting to it. We're just getting all the tourists first, right? So, it's good to see that all the activity, Quahog Republic is open again. There's been a lot of people, sashes, a bunch of cars all around there. We didn't get to go in and eat, but it's good to have our friends at Quahog Republic back. There are people walking through Onset, so we're looking forward to a great summer. But again, if you see anything like that, just report it to somebody, because if you don't report it, chances are we're not going to see it. So I'm sorry I took an extra minute there, Mr. Chairman, but
It's all good.
I think that's an important issue. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Slavin.
Okay.
And the biggest thing of all is we have to end before midnight so I can get to the post office. Remember, today's tax day, and you have until midnight to get those little envelopes. Mr. Sullivan's laughing too, look. Pete is laughing now, so I'm not sure if I'm the only one. So there'll be no vote to go after 10 tonight. Just a reminder, get to the post office before midnight and get that envelope put in. Thanks.
Okay. This Saturday from 10 to 4 at the Wareham Fire and Water District, they have their election. Please come out and vote. Last night, the district had their version of town meeting. We hear a lot of people complaining about the districts, et cetera. But with 87 people showing up for a district town meeting, it's a pretty sad state when people complain and yet nobody shows up to voice their actual opinion where they can vote. We have Easter and Passover this week. Happy holidays to each person who celebrates either one. On the 25th, on the Oyster Festival, on Friday at the old Toby Library, there'll be a dance for the Oyster Festival. And then on the Sunday, the 27th, they'll be on Main Street, will be blocked off, and they'll be celebrating with different restaurants, different types of oysters, different events all up and down the street. And then we have the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Division of Marine Fisheries has basically conditionally approved closing shellfish from April 1st to November 30th, and that's all shellfish in the Middle River area. These waters, flats, are tributaries of that portion of Wewianick River in the towns of Marion and Wareham, Northville Line, Drawn Easterly, whatever, and just go through up to Briarwood Road, Roosevelt Road, and over to Rose Point. So we basically have an area that's going to be closed all summer right through the fall, and unless the water quality improves, they will not open up in December 1st like they usually do. Mr. Sullivan and the Municipal Maintenance Director did apply for the pothole program that the governor announced just recently, about a week or so ago, and we got an announcement from Mr. Sullivan that we got $108,000 to fix potholes. We have Wareham's Coffee Hour. Mr. White has Mrs. Kimberly Shaver Hood at 9:15 in the conference room at the library on this Thursday. Please go spend some time, sit down and speak with her. She has a lot of interesting ideas what she wants to approve. We got an email from a young student. I can't tell how old he is, but I don't think he's very old. Actually writing a letter to the Board of Selectmen with an idea of how maybe we could do things better. Instead of just complaining like we get a lot of times, he actually has made some suggestions. I'm going to read it. It's just, the young man deserves the courtesy of spending that time writing something and actually doing something correctly. Basically, Board of Selectmen, dear the Board of Selectmen, I have an idea about public football fields in Wareham. One benefit is it could get kids more active. It can also be a lot of fun for the kids. It can also decrease the risk of obesity. It would be good to have kids be healthy. The final reason is you can get money from it to help the schools. You can pay $5 for the day. Some possible places would be in the middle of the middle school's track and the backfields of Minor Forest School. If you read this, thank you for your time. James, and I believe it's Tokarz, T-O-K-A-R-Z. James, thank you. Hopefully when you get a little older, you come visit us.
Okay. By the way, today is my daughter's birthday. 6 years old today, and interesting enough, tax day. That's a birthday that'll never be forgotten, right? Yeah, you know, if she was here, you could do a little rendition, but I think we'll forgo. Actually, she's at the movies, I believe, with the rest of the family.
She's spending a refund.
Yes, she's seeing Rio, I think. Is what okay, citizens' participation. Probably. I know if she heard me sing. She's heard me sing.
Mr. Mulcairn?
Hi, Joe Mulcairn, Precinct 2. I was here last week, and as I can see, one of the problems I had with municipal maintenance taking care of our erosion problem on Wychunas Avenue. You've notified him, but my problem is I had a big speech before, but I had to change everything. Okay, I called municipal maintenance about the problem there with the erosion, and he said they're going to backfill it and. That's it. And I also asked about what about the pipe? There's a piece of pipe in the ground that's less than 8 inches below the ground, and he's going to cover it up. And my concern was, in the future, it's a dirt road plowing, that a plow could actually pull this thing out. It's dead-ended down in near my house there, and it could pull up and cause some serious problems. So that was one of the problems I want to bring up to you that has to be corrected. And that's what he told me. Not through him, through his secretary, because he's on vacation. And I had to change everything around again, so I tried to straighten up with him and about the piping, but then his idea was to solving this problem is to, he called the Conservation Commission, and all of a sudden Conservation was down there afterwards, and I went and saw him today, and apparently he said there were rocks on the roadway that were put there. We put them years ago to keep people from driving the cars on the beach because it's against the law to do it. And Conservation told me that I'm going to file a notice of intent. I'm going before them the end of the month to straighten this thing out about the rocks and stuff. But the thing is, the erosion problem is not going to be solved. I talked to Conservation. Apparently, they have no authority to say correct the problem, because there's a drainage problem coming down this hill, and it doesn't go into the bay through the drainage system. It circumvents the piping. It takes a right turn, goes down this dirt road, erodes the beach every time it rains. And the association, we have to go down there, we have to clean it up with our rakes. We used to have a machine, but it got too expensive and too hard to do. So we're trying to solve this problem there. Conservation is going to try and help us out, but apparently they can't help us. So we, the association, we'd like to know how the town could correct this problem, because the other two sections that we have water dumping into the bay, into Buttermilk Bay, they have the special drainage that goes right across the whole roadway, so it doesn't bypass the two drains on White Tunis Avenue. And apparently, nobody wants to seem to repair it. I mean, we have a lot of people down there. I myself, I know I pay a lot of taxes because I'm on a beach road, and it's upsetting that we have to go to the association and clean up this mess every time we have a rainstorm, and if it gets bad enough tonight, we're gonna get more erosion there again. I'm asking you people, and we're pleading with you, who's gonna solve the problem? It's municipal maintenance problem because the drainage is not going where it's supposed to go. They plow the road. Years ago, apparently, the water went down into the wetlands, or not the wetlands, but the beach grass, but between the sand they pushed down the bottom of the hill and everything else there, the water has no place to go normally. Now it's taking a right turn from the paved road into the dirt road, going down 275 feet. Not on our beach property, on the Salvation Army's property, and it erodes the beach, and we maintain their property as well because we clean up all the crap and stuff that people leave there, and it comes from everything else. So I'm pleading with you and the members, most of them aren't here now because other than the girl that went with me today to the Conservation Commission. I'm pleading with you, what is going to happen? What can we have to solve this problem? Every time we have a storm, and you came down, Mr. Slavin, and you looked at it Sunday, and you told me that the street was not an accepted way, because you said it said private road. It's not a private road.
Put your notes down, as I told you before. This is citizen participation.
Yes.
Hear what you have to say.
Yeah, okay.
We can't answer you here.
Okay, I'm
Municipal
just
maintenance.
saying, I was told by you,
I will answer in a few
yeah,
minutes.
okay,
but when I
okay,
went-
I was told that it was a private road. It is not. It's an accepted way. It was accepted in 1956, and it's all the way through. And I talked with other people, and they said, well, it could be partial. It's not partial. It says accepted wholly, not partial like you read in the book there. It's accepted even though it's a dirt road, part of it. So the town it's their obligation to maintain the road, and it's their obligation to correct this drainage problem that goes down there. Thank you.
Point made. Please put a note down for today. It's a different point than the last one. Mrs. Slavin. No, afterwards. No, yes, I'll say something else then.
I have what I know what I'm gonna do, but she's not getting anything out of it. She's gonna keep coming up here and pulling this bullshit.
Come on. We have more than one microphone.
Good evening, Sandy Slavin. Part of your town business tonight is you're going to discuss the liaisons to boards, committees, and commissions. I'd like to discuss that. I would like to see the selectmen, who are liaisons, show up and participate in at least one meeting a quarter for the boards, committees, and commissions that they are liaisons to. I know some of the philosophy in the past has been, well, I'm not going unless there's a problem. What I'd like you to do is come, meet us, get to know who's on the board, have some idea of what we're doing, so when it comes back to liaison reports at the Board of Selectmen's meeting, you don't always hear nothing, no report, nothing, no report. It would be nice if you were to, at least once a quarter, come to one of our meetings, meet the people who are in there, and maybe by reporting on what you do, we might get more citizens to step up and become part of these committees. But right now, it looks like we're doing nothing because liaisons are not reporting back anything. That's just a recommendation that I will put in the book, that liaisons really do support, attend, and report on what the committees are doing for the town. Number two, if you take a look at your list of boards and committees and commissions on the town website, you're missing the Trash Committee, which was formed in July 2012. You've appointed 2 members to that. One has left the town, so never signed in, so there is 1 member. The Police, Harbor, and School Committee have identified a representative to be on this Trash Committee, but it's never met. It's not even listed on the town website. So if the Board of Selectmen really are concerned about trash, please step up and make this committee work. The master plan is not on the town website either. I know I was appointed to the master plan in July of 2013. We've not met once. There's been no attempt to get us together. We could have been 6 months into this project, which will take about a year and a half to done, and we've lost 6 months because we can't get a meeting together. So please, whoever's going to be the liaison to the master plan, please step up and get us going. It would be great if we just lost 6 months. And I know we need a new master plan. Okay, that's that one. Number 2. Three? Oh, that's right, 2. Okay, 3. I want to thank the town administrator for arranging for the trash pickup along Narrows and Minot Ave. I've seen bags and bags and bags of trash, and it looks good for 2 or 3 days, but that's not your concern. But you must have arranged for the trial court, community service people to get in there, and it looked good. Thank you very much for picking up that area.
Actually, those kudos go to somebody else, but I appreciate
I will,
it.
you can pass it on to whoever it was that arranged for it. I was down at a private beach this weekend, and underneath a sign that says private beach, dogs not allowed by Board of Selectmen, is a man with his dog, dogs running on the beach. When I did speak to him, his response was, well, no one's enforcing it. So maybe, if in fact we have a dogs not allowed on the beach rule or law, we either enforce it or look at it to me whether or not we make it a seasonal banding. Because right now, it's a joke. You go someplace and you're going to get stepped in something. Dogs are going all over whether it's a private or a public beach. If the Board of Selectmen say don't allow, then enforce it. If not, change it. One other thing, I've noticed more and more private use of town-owned property around the town. Is there somebody who should be monitoring who using town-owned property for their personal use? Should we be collecting fees or rent or something for use of those those town properties for private use? Just a comment. And my last one, since this is a sewer business meeting, may I make a recommendation? As you're doing your breakfast or your lunch or whatever, take a paper towel and wipe the grease out of your dish, out of your pan before you wash it to prevent the grease from building up in the sewer plant. Thank you.
Please make
Yeah, I
notes on
will
it.
be here for 5 minutes.
As we promised, we would try and get back to people which we have emailed back from last week. People who were there for the library questions were all emailed back with the explanation that during our meeting, we went ahead and voted to appropriate additional funds for the library certification if the override does pass. Mr. Mulkern's question, one was answered. The other issue that he had about the area with the road, I actually went down to the road, pulled paperwork from the town assessor's office. As you come down Wychunas Road, there are some storm drains as you come down the road. The way they're positioned, they've been there a long time. There's a possibility that the drains might get basically with the sand and everything else over the years, maybe clogged and maybe hard to clear them out. That's something municipal maintenance can probably look at. But we are having weather change, and what we're getting torrential rainstorms that are not in the norm. So if you actually have any idea how things work with water flow, and you sit at the bottom of Wychunas which comes to this here, which says dead end, it says private beach, no vehicles. And I'll explain in a minute about that as well. That's a very steep downgrade. Unfortunately, years ago, everything there was probably what we call pervious soils, which mean water would basically soak into the soil that was running down. But since we've paved the streets, and people have basically, all along this particular street where Wychunas is along the beach, every one of these houses sits high up and has a very steep driveway down to the dirt road, which then goes to the beach area. What happens when you have pavement everywhere around there, the water just runs off in sheets, comes off the houses and runs off as well. So you're getting extra amount of water flowing through, which of course is going to end up taking soil away with it. What's happening there now was never designed, and therefore the problem is not just the town, it's the homeowners as well. We'll basically go look and check, see if or not whether those drains are, sufficiently running that the actual water can go through, but you have a basic area where the storm water itself is running at a rate that's not viable. Joe, you're all set.
I just
Mr.
wanna add-
Mulcairn, we heard, you're all set, please, go back.
Oh, another.
We're done.
I disagree with everything you're saying.
Mr. Mulcairn,
Okay.
thank you. We're happy to listen to you. You can hear that. Now, municipal maintenance went down and really didn't do much because when they went down the end of the street, they saw a sign saying, private beach, no vehicles. Looking at this, your first thought would be, it's a private beach, but also no vehicles are allowed in the area. What the sign really should say is no vehicles on the beach. So they basically stopped at that point thinking they were marking the street off as a private beach. I can understand the issue there. While we were there, as my wife mentioned earlier, we had someone walking on a dog on the beach.
That was me.
We know that. So I'm just saying that, yeah, it is. So the idea is that, no, it doesn't matter. Not the question. The idea is that we have issues, but we shouldn't be contributing and doing things that are wrong. We'll take care of what we can, but again, you're a member of the Conservation Committee. You should know better.
Okay, licenses and permits. The application for Buzzards Bay Brewery is being put off. We don't have a completed application, so we're going to not deal with that this evening. We're going to go to the discussion of the policy for 0208. What?
Mr. Holmes would like
Say
to
that,
comment.
I was going to say on that issue, I have to drive by there to see if it's similar, Alan. We had a problem off of Onset Ave, and I think it's called either Locust Street Extension or Old Locust. If you come down
It's
the hill,
Locust Street
Locust is on the
Extension.
right,
Extension.
and then on the left is that old road that went up in the back there.
Mhm.
And we had the same problem there. Every time you had even a little bit of rain, there was like a pond in the back. When you go down, it's only a short road, and then you have those houses around it. And we found a couple things there. One, Mr. Gifford, we tried to build it up a little bit because there is a drain back there in the back, but it always gets clogged up. And then the water fills all the way out through almost to the beach.
Yep.
Everybody's yard you got a pond there. So we're real concerned about, especially mosquitoes, with all the kids playing in the summertime, right? So we found a couple things. One, as you alluded to, the first place we looked was all the people's houses. And there were a lot of drain pipes that were broken. So the water wasn't going, it wasn't delivering the water where it was supposed to be delivering it in the first place. And the second thing was that we found on Onset Avenue, it's right at the bottom of the hill as you're coming down that hill. So the water was going down there, and it dug its way, like it sounds like this one did. It took a left turn into Old Locust Street, or Locust Extension. So he fixed that by, he ended up putting in call those berms, almost like a speed bump. But it was designed so that the water couldn't go left anymore, and it had to go straight. We still get a little ponding there, a little back. We still get a puddle there that's not sizable, but it's nowhere near as bad as it was. And it sounds like what he's saying. If you get up to the point where it turns right to go down into that, maybe a berm could help there, Alan.
Well,
Do you
actually-
think that might help?
Actually, what you have is if you go down the end of Wychunas where it comes to a dead end, right after that, Mr. Campina has a pumping station. I think it's off Hiawatha. Well, Hiawatha comes down Saltworks, right there.
Yeah.
That particular pump station, you follow to the beach. As you get to the beach, they've built up a little berm, and
Yeah.
there's a set of grading there, which obviously the water goes into a storm drain there, which probably could be down on this particular road as well on the other side on Wychus. But that's how they fixed that area there, because there's nothing washing through there because there's a drain there now.
So they burned it up and put a drain?
Yep. which is probably what they can look at and say.
On this side?
Yeah, my concern
Yeah.
is whether or not the existing drains coming because it's a long, long run down that road, whether all those different drains along there, how much stuff is in there clogging.
Yeah, because remember that water coming down Onset Avenue is coming from all the way back to Independence Yacht Club at the top of the hill there,
It's also coming
know?
off everybody's house.
past the church.
Okay.
Okay.
I apologize for taking so much time, but I wanted to be thorough about this.
Okay, discussion on possible revision of policy 0208. Everybody should have it in their packet. This is the one, it says, "It is the policy of the Board of Selectmen that commercial activity shall not be permitted to take place on any town-owned property, including beaches, without a permit from the Office of the Selectmen. Commercial activity include offering food, beverage, or other goods and services for retail sale. Permit conditions shall include insurance at a level specified by the town, which names the town as an additional insured. All town property used for parking shall remain under the town control, and all revenues for parking go to the town. It is also the policy of the Board of Selectmen that town property shall not be utilized for private purposes without a permit from the Office of the Selectmen. This policy extends to the use of town buildings, parks, play fields, bandstands, and gazebos."
I brought this policy back because when we were discussing, I think a few weeks back, about alcohol in I think it was the library at the time, at that time, Selectman Tropiano had concerns about alcohol in any town-owned building. So we brought it back because that was a question there. Plus, we've had requests going forward as well. So my question to the board is, do we want to sit there and work on this at a later date and take care of that issue? Because what it says right now is beverages. It doesn't specify what beverages are.
Beverages include all beverages, anything that you can drink. It
Mr.
also must be permitted. It very
what it
clearly
does-
says that.
But what this does right now, this allows, with our approval, which means there's no consistency to who does and who doesn't get permit.
Then we go back to the drawing board and we make it consistent.
Yeah, I think this is very ambiguous at best and really needs to have, I mean, if this is the policy and this is what we want to do, then we have to define it better. Because, you know, this is no policy at all. Because, for one, if it's alcohol, you gotta have a permit from us anyway, because you gotta have a one-day license or something. So it really doesn't meet any of the things I think we were trying to do anyway. So maybe it is something we need to spend some time on and review and.
Move
deal
that we put it off for a week.
Mr. Holmes?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think this is the right policy. This is a policy on use of town beaches.
The original policy, Mr. Holmes, way back when it was first put together, was town beaches, then it got expanded.
We just passed one a few weeks ago.
This is-
No
This
alcohol.
is the one.
No, that's this one here.
This is the
This
one.
doesn't even mention alcohol.
It says beverages.
It says beverages.
No.
That's what it
Yeah.
says. This one
It
was.
said it's under the discretion of the Board of Selectmen. This is the wrong policy.
But no,
No, it
see, it
says-
was revised on March 11th.
Sorry.
We revised it on March 11th. When you know what we added to it on March 11th, right? You remember, Steve?
Was the parking.
Was the parking issue.
Right.
That's
took
what
it-
we
that was
revised
the
in it
parking.
on March
That's
the
all
8th.
part of this
It was
policy.
the alcohol policy that we changed.
No.
And it said, subject to approval by the Board of Selectmen. It was very specific to alcohol.
Well, all alcohol is subject to the Board of Selectmen anyway,
But on town property.
even on town property.
I understand that, but
It's
our
up to
policy
us.
was no alcohol on town property.
Right, well,
We
need
already
to-
have that in the policy already.
I think we need to go back and look at these things and kind of get them refined.
But I don't think it's under use of town beaches.
But-
It's not, this isn't the policy that says we don't allow alcohol.
Right, but unfortunately, see, this thing says, it says use of town beaches as its heading, but if you read it, it says, it shall not be permitted to take place on any town-owned property.
Right. So you want,
So
so,
it kind of extended beaches to
I had
all
my-
property.
I'm not in the
Go ahead,
debate
Mr.
here.
Holmes.
I had my hand up. The policy that I thought you and I talked about was the use of alcohol on town property. This is not the policy. It's a different policy.
This
that
is the
says-
only one we voted, though. We voted this on March 11th.
Oh, we voted for a lot of them over the last several weeks. The one that talks about alcohol on town property is not this policy. There is another policy that talks about alcohol being served on town property.
Can we bring them back
It's
next
not
week,
this one.
please?
It's the one about signs, it's the one about talks about signage, it talks about all kinds of other stuff.
Actually,
And it says right in there, there's no alcohol to be served on town property, subject to the Board of
you know what?
Selectmen.
I looked through every one of those things the other night because
There's
of,
nothing in there.
because of the issue, and there was nothing there.
Yeah.
I
It
went
mentions
through every
alcohol.
single one of them.
I'll check out.
Yeah, I pulled it up, Patrick, because I went back through the history and I found it.
Who are the
When
bo-
we had voted to allow the library. And then I called you and said, hey, you know, I don't think we can do that. And sure enough, I went back and the Board of Selectmen had it in a policy. And it said, the way when we voted it a few weeks ago, we talked about signs and this and that, and the other thing. And it said, no alcohol on served on town property, unless allowed by the Board of Selectmen. But it was very specific, Patrick, about alcohol. I'll go find it and bring it.
Can we
bring
please
up
put it
next
off
week.
for,
But
a couple
it's
of
not the
weeks?
one that talks about beaches.
But either way, if we can do it by a vote of the Board of Selectmen, then
Yeah.
really is it, in other words, it's not creating, what is it creating? You know what I mean? Like,
But we need to have it, it needs to be a policy.
Yeah, but
There
the
was a
policy
reason I
needs to
brought
be
it
one
up
way or
to
the other.
Alan.
Let him finish.
Oh,
The policy needs to be one way or the other. You can't say, okay, we're gonna create a policy, and it's going to be no alcohol on town property, except if we say it's okay, which is us anyway. Which, every time you wanna get alcohol, you need to have a permit, you gotta come to us anyhow.
That
So
was-
it's sort of redundancy, and, you know what I mean?
that was the whole point of bringing this back up.
Right.
So there would be no gray areas, and there would be no alcohol on town.
This is the basic reason we brought it up, because we had a policy that we weren't consistent because we've actually issued, and again, there's just no consistency of what we've done, because again, how do you pick which group is yes, which is no? So we'll bring this back up right after town meeting, because we only have one more week, and then we have that.
Okay.
Mr. Titlebaum.
So one thing we can take care of tonight, you listed possible revisions. Why are we saying use of town beaches when clearly this existing policy goes well beyond that? Why don't we just say use of town property, be done with it? It makes it unambiguous. I'm gonna tell you something, the original policy, and Patrick, you were a signatory to that one back in 2002, to
Yes, I
refresh your
was.
memory,
Yes, I
is
was.
what's up on the town website now to make things even more confusing.
It's
So
not
after
right.
after we fix this tonight and call it town property, let's get the latest and greatest one up there and do away with the ancient history.
I'll ask for a motion to change the heading.
So moved.
second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
But we
So this is now
still
gonna
going,
be
no, we're
use
still
of-
going to bring it back.
Yes.
use of what?
Use of town
Town
property.
property.
And you know, and I have no issue,
And if you can bring back what you think you have somewhere.
effective today, I would clarify and say that there is not to be any alcohol served on town property. I make that in the form of a motion. And you want to change it later, but as of today, no alcohol to be served on town property.
Do we have a second?
Can I get a second?
I'll second it for
At least
discussion.
For discussion.
I'd like to have a little discussion, yeah.
Go ahead. Who's
Okay.
first?
I think we have one issue that we're going to have to deal with, and that's this Buzzards Bay Brewing.
Yep.
And the reason why I say that is because we allowed it to happen at the library, and they've already been in, they already are expecting or wanting this to happen. They just did get all their paperwork in for this second round for this thing. And I don't know how we can actually not allow them to do it. They should be an exception. And then if we want to have a more restrictive policy after that, I understand it, because there's nobody else pending before us. These guys are pending.
There will be a long list now.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
This
I
board
think-
has opened a can of worms, Mr. Trappier.
Well, but we can change that
We can.
after this.
There was never
We
any
can
liquor
say
served
that's the
at the
way it's going to
library.
be.
There was
And I-
never any liquor served at the library. It got canceled.
No, it
No,
was
it's-
served. There was,
The event got canceled.
Everybody, please, one at a time, finish up, and then the next person starts.
The
We can't
murder-
keep talking over each other.
okay, the murder mystery one, there was liquor served in October.
I'm telling you, if you let this one go, you have to allow every event in onset this summer to sell alcohol. You have to do it. You can't, there's no, up to the board.
Mr. Titlebaum?
I would suggest you come back to this either next week or the following week. That way, to the extent that we've got any kind of a conflict with adjusting policy midstream with the pending application from Buzzards Bay Brewing, that'll be out of the way at that time. And then you can go ahead and move freely and regulate alcohol on town property the way it should be.
I agree.
Well, I think it's already on the books myself.
Another
Because
point.
It's been issued, it's been reviewed by previous boards.
Another point I'd like to make, just for thought, not really for discussion tonight, because this is a fairly weighty issue. You know, the way this policy reads now, and Patrick described it as not a policy, and to some extent he's right, because what it does is it leaves a lot of discretion in the hands of the Board of Selectmen to decide where you can serve alcohol, when you can serve alcohol, time, place, and manner restrictions, or even the fact of whether you can do it or not. You know, on the one hand, you like to have clear guidelines for people to follow so that they know when they can come to you and ask for something and have a reasonable shot at getting it. And then, you know, on the flip side, know that, you know, no way am I going to waste my time trying to do this because it's just not going to happen. On the other hand, you know, the purposes of alcohol and the use of town property, we are the custodians, and I think there does need to be some flexibility in there to allow it. I mean, we're elected to exercise our discretion in some respects. So, you know, I don't have a huge problem with the policy with the way it's currently granted. I think we have to think long and hard before we let alcohol be served at events that serve 20,000 or more people. Small events, limited in scope to small areas, perhaps those are things we would want to allow.
I'll bring it back next week and we'll have a discussion. This is something that we all have different points.
Yeah, I have another question.
Go ahead.
We refused people the ability to serve liquor in Onset last summer. So is this going to be a Wareham thing versus Onset thing, where you're going to have these small events in Wareham and you're going to allow liquor, and in Onset, because we have larger crowds, you're going to disallow the use of liquor?
I can answer that.
We were denied last summer at, I think, 2 events that wanted to serve beer and wine. And we were rejected and told that there was no alcohol to be served on town property.
The policies that we
It did
have,
happen, Mr. Chairman.
understand, but
Okay.
the policy that we have, that we work with, says the town of Wareham. That answers the question.
Well, and the second half of my question is, in this policy that you have written down here, are we saying that it says commercial activity, including food, offering food, beverage, or other goods or services for retail sale, right?
Mm-hmm.
Has to have a permit from the office of the Board of Selectmen. So, and these permit conditions include insurance at a level specified by the town, which names the town as an additional insured. Correct?
Correct.
That's what it says there. So, at every event, whether it's in Wareham or Onset, there are vendors at all these events. When was the last time we issued a permit to any vendor in Wareham?
On town property?
It's all on town property. Onset Band Show, the park,
The road.
the road.
They have to-
You have a parade, you have vendors walking up and down the street. Do they have a permit issued from the Board of Selectmen?
No.
I mean, we've never, a food vendor selling hot dogs?
Nope, you're absolutely right.
Near and
They
dear to
should have
my
a permit.
heart,
According
but-
to this, they should have permit.
Yeah, it should be.
Issued by the Board of Selectmen, it
Yes.
clearly states, the Board of Selectmen.
And the Board of Health.
And the Board of Health as
The
well.
Board of Health.
Well, it
would
doesn't
be
say
for
the Board of Health. It
But
says
the Board of
Office
Health
the
is
Selectmen.
chapter 2, that's a separate thing.
So, every one of these events, even the one next week in the village of Wareham, there will be violations. Because you have restaurant owners coming from Onset and all over town, they don't own business on Main Street. So in effect, they're a road vendor. Their permits and licenses are for Onset
Right.
in Cranberry Highway, in East Wareham, but not downtown. So if they show up, in effect, they're a vendor.
To that point, I do believe there are state hawkers licenses where you've got these people that go around all over the place, and then they're not required to get local permits for that, because the state law and the state permit supersedes our ability to regulate them. This issue came up before within the past year, I want to say. We were talking about hawkers and
Not
peddlers.
every
and-
vendor, though, Mr. Titlebaum, as you well know, is a hawker.
Yeah, you got that right. Some of them are fly-by-nighters.
Right, you see some with the T-shirts and they set up shop, and so
But you're,
this is
he's right.
this is more to the point of just selling alcohol. You could go through these shows and shut down half the vendors if they don't have a state license.
He's right. I mean, if you want to follow the policy, he's absolutely right. That's how it has to be. That's the only other way you can read it.
And if we don't
And
follow it,
it really
throw
doesn't
out.
have anything to do with state licenses. This is a local license, and of course, local licenses, you can have a local license, and you could charge a fee and whatever you want as far as these things are concerned. We haven't done it in the past. I think when we wrote that policy, I think we were more concerned about specific town hall, specific things like beach use and things of that nature. And so maybe we need to go back and redesign this. By the way, the fact that Onset was denied a permit is in the purview of the Board of Selectmen, because as it makes clear in the policy says that the Board of Selectmen can give a permit. They don't have to, but they can. What you made a motion that says none. So that would be a new policy that would say no alcohol, period, on town property. That's right. That's a different thing altogether. And so that's would be a whole different scenario compared to what's happened in the past. So I think Peter's right, and I think we should wait and put this off for a week or so, just so we can get it done. Plus, we have to deal with this Buzzards Bay thing because it's a pending application, not something that might be coming in. It's literally pending. And that would be my opinion.
Hey, and I have no problem with drinking and walking around. I mean, I've done it
Do you want to?
1,000 times.
Do you want to?
It's not that, but now I'm in a position of being a selectman, and we're talking about our town, and do we want people walking around with drinking, and do we want that going on?
Do you want to pull your motion for that, and we'll get back to it next week or not?
No, that's okay. We can put it off till next week if you want, but I think whatever we do, and
Withdraw
I'll
my-
close with this,
This is what-
whatever we
Withdraw my
do
second.
has to be fair.
I agree.
It can't be at some discretionary, some board sitting here saying, yeah, it's okay for the library, but it's not okay for the Blues Festival.
Again,
Or
as
it's
I,
okay for Wareham Village Association, but it's not okay for the Cape Verdean Festival, right?
that was my comment about being
I think it
consistent.
has to be fair.
Has to be consistent.
Otherwise, we're gonna have problems in other areas with people being treated not fairly.
Back on the agenda on the 22nd. Next.
Okay, next up would be the rebuilding of Lopes Playground. I would believe this would be Ms. Whiteside.
Yes. I'd ask that Mr. and Mrs. Kiley step forward, as well as Mike Broderick, and have a seat. In 1988, the community of Wareham built the Leonard C. Lopes Memorial Playground. In 2004, the Robert Thornton basketball courts were added to the town property. The Robert Leathers Playground at Lopes Field was built in response to a challenge made by me in 1986, I think, when I was a selectman. The Lopes Field then, as now, was central to the residents of the Onset portion of town, and it needed sprucing up. I slapped $10 down on the table and challenged my fellow selectmen to match that and start a fund to build a community playground. A committee was formed with Mark Truran and Marge Crabtree as co-chairman, our then CETA director, Gus Yankopoulos, myself, and 18 others who were instrumental in the design, fundraising, and build. The services of Robert Leathers, worldwide famous for creative play areas, were engaged, and we were on a roll. Many local businesses and individuals were involved, either in financial donations or donations of materials. In all, more than $50,000 was raised. Thank you. Over $50,000 was raised, and over 1,500 volunteers built the playground in a 4-day weekend. Today, I challenge each of you to join me on May 10th, which is a Saturday, for a community clean and preen. The JROTC program at the high school has already agreed to be our younger generation workers in conjunction with their Learn and Earn program. We already have plans for them to spread new pea stone, which will be delivered the day before by Municipal Maintenance Department. The Cape Verdean Association, through Michael Roderick, has already made arrangements to pay for new signage for the playground, and the old signage has been removed. Chief Ray Goodwin of the Onset Fire Department is planning to power wash the cement and basketball courts and possibly other items. Mr. Guy Campina will be making significant improvements to the adjacent pumping station, including trees and flowers. We are looking for donations of time, money, and material. Mr. Roger Long, who is unable to be here tonight, has agreed to be one of our planners, and he is sharing his email address with the public. It is roger5628@verizon.net. Please contact him, myself, Jay Whiteside at warehammass.us, or Selectman Tropiano, P. Tropiano at wareham.mass.us, to tell us what you can help us with. We're looking for refreshments for our workers, probably pizza and soda, the loan of heavy street brooms and wheelbarrows, rakes and donations of workers' gloves and industrial plastic bags, paint, the type to be specified by Mr. Tropiano, and some perennials or annuals. We're also
Sanders,
looking...
lots of Sanders.
Lots of Sanders, and call Mr. Tropiano with that. We are also looking for carpenters who can help us rebuild the picnic tables and do repair work as needed. We need somebody to actually reshingle the gazebo roof. So, May 10th, put it on your calendar. Let us know that you will be there for the rededication of the playground, which is a joint community effort. We'll talk about a rain date later. No way is it going to rain. Give us a shout and help us out. The community needs you. What I have in front of me is the plaque that was placed on the playground in 1988 at the conclusion of the build, okay? I also have some information about a very small town who did exactly the same thing that I'm challenging us to do. On May 10th, we're just going to be making it safe and making it whole. But I really want to refurbish the playground. The community of St. Andrew in New Brunswick has 1,500 citizens. In 1993, it raised money and built a Robert Leathers playground. In 2013, they rebuilt the playground. Again, the community has 1,500 citizens. That's it. They raised over $130,000 to refurbish the community's playground. Playgrounds were actually invented in Boston. First sand pile playground was in, I think, the South End. The Robert Leathers playgrounds include lots of fantastic things like, what are these called? Sprinkly dinklies or something? Splash pads. Okay. And there's a picture here of what some things looked like in the renovation process, a before and an after picture. What happens in a renovation and a rebuild is that the materials that were used in 1988 are replaced with materials that are now safe. And the community helps plan the playground, and the community helps build the playground. Yes, there are some CPA funds available later. There's some CETA funds available later. We're available now. And as Margaret Mead said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Several people have stepped forward to help with this weekend, or this day, May 10th. And I hope that we can enlarge it to be a community rebuild of a fabulous tot lot playground that is made by a world-famous, designed by a world-famous architect. And again, in front of us, we have Mr. Mike Roderick from the Cape Verdean Association and Mr. and Mrs. Kiley representing, I guess, Mr. Long, but you also had given us, yeah. Would you like to address us?
Yes.
Talk right into that microphone, would you please?
Okay. The signs, it's a four-sided new sign for the Lopes Playground as well as the Thornton basketball courts. The signs are being made now, unless there's a problem. Our plan is to have both families there and unveil the new signs as they're put up and have a little cookout and help with the cleanup. At the time that we were doing the sign planning, I didn't know about the cleanup until the sign was missing, and then I thought I should make some phone calls and find out where it went. So this is even better. What we were trying to do was just replace the signs because they look terrible. I know both individuals, one I grew, he was my idol, Mr. Lopes. As a little kid, I can remember looking up to him. I just like to see the new signs, and the playground has always been there. It's excellent. Cleaning up is something that seems like a very good idea.
Mr. Roderick has made arrangements with the Foursquare Church for us to use the bathrooms, the parking lot,
Yes.
and the hall, I guess, for our meals and needs.
Yes.
I'm just pleased that there's been something that's being done about it. I was saying our grandchildren enjoy this park immensely. They call it the Wooden Park, and they come and they play hide and seek on it. It's a very unusual park compared to all the ones that you see. So they love it more than the beach sometimes. So it's nice to see that. I appreciate the response when I sent an email. I see that the parking lot has been regraded, and there's been a couple of things that's done, and we're not available that day. I know the Longs are, but we're willing to share and give some money to help buy pizza, buy paint, to help out in that kind of way. So hopefully there can be a group that is, would this be a press release out in one of the local papers?
The 3 papers have copies of it, am I correct?
Okay, then hopefully a lot of people will respond.
Yes, thank you so much.
They'll be the ones jumping up to grab you when you're walking out.
Oh, good.
I'd just like to add, we have 17 grandkids.
Wow.
And so, we came to town, we bought a place on Maple Street 4 years ago, and they've enjoyed it and liked it and had fun down there. But we just noticed, some of the deterioration that was going on, swings were hanging off, little trees were growing at the bottom of slides where kids' eyes were in danger. And I actually went down and swept off 3/4 of the basketball court. But I got a little tired. That was a lot of work for somebody my age. So I'm glad to see the chief is going to go down there and clean it up.
Is there going to be, I understand, I don't know much about the town, I haven't been involved in town politics, but is there going to be anything like a trash barrel there, ever? Or is that, I know that this is an issue, and that somehow that seems to be something that people think. My suggestion, if you don't want to do a trash barrel, you go places and they have little baggies to put your dog waste in. What about some sort of a baggie to pick up your own trash when you leave, so people just don't throw things out? Is there something that can be done so people?
I'm sure that we could talk with some of the local vendors who, you might buy a pizza or you might buy, soda or whatever. And that's really good advertising for them, have their bags with their logo on it. So lots of ideas like that are what we need for not just this May 10th cleanup, but for what I really hope is a rebuild effort, which will take us a year or so.
We did go
Yeah.
down, we were away, and we went down before we left. And after the day, I think after it had been regraded, or 2 days later, there were like 4 large bottles and stuff already on the new parking lot, and I thought, well, that's annoying. So, I picked it up, but it's something that the community has to address and work with. So, but there has to be something, so they have to have a place to put it too, or bring it back with them or something.
It's interesting, but for years there was absolutely no graffiti on any of the structures, because the community built it, the community would not.
Yeah, I didn't notice a whole
Yeah.
lot of graffiti.
Am I right, Mr.
Yeah,
Roderick?
I've never noticed a graffiti
Yeah.
problem there.
Yep.
Bottles, there were broken bottles on the basketball court.
Yes.
Saw
Nips.
that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And all sorts of other unattractive
Yeah.
things, we know.
So it
But
would
the
be a
the really
thing.
good news is that several different groups have come together
Good.
and have volunteered to do something for the betterment of the town. And that's, I think, a really great step in the right direction, and I applaud all of you for stepping forward, and thank you.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Mrs. Whiteside, you have any time frame?
For the reconstitution of it, we're doing this on May 10th.
Okay. Yeah.
Are you talking about the rebuild effort?
The rebuild effort itself, we have to work obviously with Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Menard
Well, I need
as
to talk with Mr. Sullivan, I need to talk with Mr. Pichette, I need to talk with the people who designed the playground. I actually have been in contact with them and asked them to please pull their records out from when we did it the first time. What they do is they come back to the community and they have a let's talk about it day. And the kids who would be using the playgrounds get to say, oh, I'd like a pirate ship, or I'd like a, what do you call that? Splash pad, or, you know, any of those things. And clearly, one of the issues that we have is that the tot lot is not separated from the basketball court. And Mr. Campina and I walked around, and he can make some betterments to his little enclosure there, which simply will make it look better. But I think in a redesign that we would actually have maybe walking paths, that we would have you know, passive recreation as well as the tot lot and the splash pads as an addition to that. I don't think we want to put any vendors in there, which was a recommendation from Mr. Pina from CETA. But that's something, again, it would be community designed and then community renovated thing. Probably a year and a half we're total.
If you'd like, I'll put it back on the agenda for the 6th, so that'll give you a little bit of time for anything else you have to do for announcements.
Thank you.
Now, if anybody wants to get a hold of you as far as coming in and helping, how would you like that to happen?
They can, again, hopefully the press will put it up, but either Mr. Tropiano or myself, through the town email, we'd be happy to add you to the list.
Thank you. Mr. Tropiano?
Okay, we're moving on. We got the discussion done. Okay, liaison.
All this is here is we haven't changed the board members at all, and I just left a note there. We won't discuss it tonight, just if anybody wants to give up a particular committee because they can't do it, or wants to change or something, please send me a note, and I'll try and make the arrangements if possible.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so before we go into sewer business, we have any other town business not reasonably anticipated 48 hours prior to the posting of the meeting. Does anyone, Peter?
None.
Ms. Whiteside?
None.
Mr. Holmes? Mr. Slavin?
None.
Myself? None. Okay, so we'll move on. All right, the sewer business. I'd probably bring Mr. Campina down. And the first thing we have is an abatement for 127 Swiss Beach Road. Account number 738428, map 50A, lot 2226, 128 Swiss Beach Road, Jose Lucio. It's for, recommended for $99.34. You want to enlighten us, Mr. Campina?
Certainly. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The water was shut off officially with the Water Arts Department. And what happened is they shut it off a year ago. I believe it was a year ago, November. And so the policy states that water has to be off for 1 full year, and after that point we can abate. So we're doing a partial abatement after they met to 2013 November, going forward because the billing cycle is from August 1 to January 31. So it's December and January that they're getting, so that totals $99. And we'll put the account on hold until the water's put back on.
I'll move the abatement of account number 738428, map 50A, lot 226, 127 Swift Beach Road, Jose Lucio, for $99.34, which represents the second half fiscal year 2014 usage billing.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Whiteside, second by Mr. Titlebaum. Any discussion? None heard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 500. Thank you.
Okay.
I just want to give out a quick handout, anticipation. I had no idea, but it's anticipation of the stormwater drains. And this, because I really didn't know what it was, this talks about stormwater, and the MS Storm Improvement Program talks about the sand, talks about treating the sand, it talks about what's on the road, the pavements, the whole 9 yards, chapter 67, the dam storm guidelines, and also a general description of the first part, what stormwater is. So I kind of, so I really didn't know that. Well, so this is what we're going to do, the upgrade. what's here, what we're thinking about. These things were in our plans, we're just moving forward about it. And this is sweet, this is like, let's do some analysis.
Great. Thank you. Okay, next up is the EDU rate schedule discussion. And if you look in your package, you'll see what's the EDU schedule right now.
Mrs. Whiteside?
Unless we have additional information, newer information.
No, we still have the same information we've had before. This is just a continuation of the
Yeah.
program. Let me explain. What we did was, I put both of these items, B and C, on the agenda to set up some type of, whether it's gonna be a workshop or how we're gonna go forward at this point. We've already had initial discussions, you know, about, about what we're doing. My thought was, it's very difficult to do this in a regular selectmen's meeting, because what we need to do is, first, we need to determine the total cost of running the facility. Then we have to determine what you would have for normal capital expenditures going down the line, so you'd have what I call depreciation, which really doesn't happen in municipal accounting, to add a figure in to include in the cost of running the facility on a yearly basis. And then you turn around and you have, it's old, Steve, you would have had it from before, not this time. It would be your previous packet. We didn't bother to include it again. And then you have to go back and then you look at the revenues that we get for different sources. And then what you end up with is a net figure, which is what we call EDUs right now. That total would cover the operation of the plant at that point there. That's basically how we have to come up with a figure of a dollar amount that we have to basically come up with to run the facility. Then we have to go back to square one and say, okay, we have an EDU system in place now, and this is how we do it. And we have some issues pending on the EDUs, how we measure for certain businesses that some make sense, some don't, and we need to fix that. Also, the question is, do we go and have, as one of the alternatives from Ty and Bond, have a base rate, and then a fee over a certain amount of gallons, you know, et cetera. So we have to come up with a plan, but we have to take one piece at a time. So all I brought it up today is just to discuss how we want to move forward, because Ty and Bond gave us to one point, and we've stopped there. Yes, Mr. Holmes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I was, I guess I was a little confused over this agenda item, because actually I thought that determined EDU process was a follow-up from the March 15 workshop, because if we were to change the process altogether and go with a usage system, that sheet really means nothing.
Yes.
So
that
I
sheet-
thought we were going to be discussing part two of the 315 meeting where we talked about EDU process. I didn't know we were going to be doing that chart.
We're not doing that chart right now. We're just at the point now where we have to go and figure out what is our first step. Are we going to basically determine the costs, the revenues, and have a dollar figure there, and then go ahead and do the decision of how we go ahead and actually come up with a system of how we're going to charge what we call EDUs.
So is the intention of the sewer commissioners at this point to continue with that process, or to go to the new suggested process that we had the workshop on March 15th?
Both. Because there's no guarantee that we will vote to go ahead and change that. So you have to have both.
So you're saying we would have two EDU systems, one that would be based on usage,
We could have two or three, actually.
or a flat rate, all right, or the
Yeah.
ascending rate,
Mhm.
and then there would also be
Working with the
the
existing.
current EDU system that Patrick has?
I think he's right. I think we have to, if I may I? I think we need to have both systems, because we don't know how we're gonna vote in the end, because obviously that's, You know, it's kind of the process we have to go through. So we'll probably end up having to put both of them together and then vote which one we want. Although this one's sort of partially in place as it sits right now. I mean, I can tell you how I plan on, or what I think I'm gonna do. I think all of you might have ideas about what you wanna do. But I think we need to workshop this. I don't think this is I don't think we can do that in this meeting.
So would that include, to just finish up, Mr. Chairman, so would that workshop include part 2 to the March 15th meeting?
I think so.
Because, I mean, I think that, you know, it's been a month, so.
It's time we have to go back to work on.
So it's either, I think at that meeting, there was a lot of information that was missing, that Mr. Campino said he had the data on. I don't think I've seen any of that. It'd be nice to have that data. There was supposed to be data on other towns with a similar system in Wareham. We said we had that information. We knew how many of this and that and the other part-time winter, and we had that information. But I haven't seen any new packets. Did I miss something?
No, you haven't
So
missed a
before
thing.
we can sit down and talk about it, I'd like to have the packet sent to us with all the information before we sit down at a workshop and get handed a packet and say, here's the information. Asking too much?
No, if you will, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize, I think that was part of the plan to put this packet together for the workshop, and I think that's where we're going.
I thought we were
But
doing that tonight.
I don't know
So
about
then
tonight,
I'll
but
be-
I didn't think it's, but I wanted to be clear, no matter what we did, there's an implementation process. So even if you said tomorrow you wanted to go to whatever system you wanted to, the timeline to implement, you still have to have something in place. So I think that's where the piece comes in about the EDU, doing some things to the EDU while we're putting a new system into place, whatever that new system was to be. And I agree that a workshop, all that should be handled. So we get a packet out to you previous to the workshop that you can review. Then we have the workshop, we discuss that packet, and then we discuss any other provisions you want, whether we stay with EDU, change EDs, adjust, and never losing focus that as we shift costs, we allocate in different areas in the EDU, we still have a budget to maintain. So that brings into the fact that that Selectman Slavin was talking about as far as budget, capital costs, the whole 9 yards, and how do we shift things if we start changing EDU. So a workshop is appropriate in my opinion. So I think you're right. That's what
This is why I said.
There is somebody in the town of Wareham who works on behalf of the citizens of the town of Wareham, who actually wrote his master's degree on EDUs. You know him, you've spoken with him. I think it would be really helpful if you and Mr. Sullivan and he could meet and sort of smush that stuff around, because when I talked with him, I learned a whole lot. And after talking with him, I thought about it differently than I had been thinking about it beforehand. So I would like the guys in charge to have some, I know that it's not telling you how to do your business, you know what I mean? But it is somebody who has researched this issue definitively.
Absolutely. That would be, for me, it'd be, through you, Mr. Chairman, whatever opinion and advice. There's all kinds of information on EDU. People even wrote the book Thorndike and those different individuals and how they based it. I have no problem with listening to anybody and anybody's input. But again, a workshop environment is where we really need, because then we can roll up our sleeves and really talk about this, talk it through, and have a really productive, workshop. So I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so I guess, I was, again, I said it the day of the workshop, and I'll say it again, I was really pretty disappointed at what we paid for and what we got, because I really expected the questions that we asked the company when we hired them here on Tuesday night. We didn't get those answers on the Saturday. So I would be as bold, and I know you can be bold when you want to be. I would ask that guy to come back to the next workshop and explain to us
That is the point.
and give us the answers that we asked for before we hired him. I'm sorry?
That was the plan, I think, Mr. Holmes, that actually he would attend the next workshop.
Right, without any additional payment, because we still haven't got the answers from the first
We'll buy him Easter
tonight.
candy.
Like, what have you seen in other similar towns as Wareham? What do you do with residentials, residents that are not year-round? Those things were never, we didn't get any detail. We should know how much the sewer plant costs to run. I think you figured that out by now. And so there are a lot of questions, especially about the rates, the seasonals, how that was handled, how do we compare to other towns? We really didn't get that. And there were some other things I think I asked for on that site. If we can go back and watch the tape. And other residents asked those same questions. So I think it wouldn't be too bold to ask him to come back and answer the questions that we asked him when we were so enthused to hire him, because he was going to answer those questions. And I think we need to get this moving. People, the other issue is, you know, people are a bit flappy about it. After all, we're talking about changing, potentially changing, the way that we charge for sewer rates. Some people will probably see their sewer rates go up a little bit, maybe down a little bit. I certainly don't want to give an Obama promise on that.
No, don't make a
that you won't
promise.
see a sewer rate.
No,
I'm not
keep
going
the
to do
same
that,
plan, you know?
because in
You
some
can keep-
cases that could be a significant swing, right?
Absolutely.
Based on what he said. So, you know, people are getting antsy. You know, we start talking about something and it goes away for a little while. So I credit the board for keeping this on the agenda. But I think it's time for part two. I thought that's what we were doing tonight.
We're ready for it.
So I think we're ready for part two. We're ready for part two on the 16th. And then St. Patrick's Day came on the 17th and we kind of got lost. But, you know, I think we're ready for part two. And I have no issue with people coming to the workshop and sharing, because I learned a lot from the constituents that were there. I thought that was good. They got to be part of the process, and they felt, the back take I got from people was they may not always be happy with the information they got when they were there, but they were happy to be part of the process. And they are the residents, so I wouldn't be opposed to having them show up again as well.
Mr.
And with
Titlebaum?
that, I just thank you.
Thank you.
2 points. One thing, and I don't know how many of the other board members realize this, because I actually spoke with the consultant quite a bit in preparation for the March 15th meeting. There was a lot of work and a lot of back and forth and a lot of involvement by the consultant, not only with the sewer department, but also with the town treasurer, in terms of getting the numbers straight. We just had the Department of Revenue come in. There's a report that I guess we're going to get real soon that they've produced. Might even be in our packets. I didn't look beyond
gave it
tonight's
to us.
folder, but
Just got it.
Just got
I
it.
thought we would, because I saw it kicking around the office earlier today. But that's something we're going to have to look at too. But just to Selectman Holmes's point, understand that just in terms of getting the breakdown to the numbers that we've heard to date was a lengthy process. There was dozens and dozens and dozens of hours expended in the review of that, rechecking and checking and checking again, because really before we go forward with different scenarios, we have to be confident that the numbers we're dealing with are the accurate numbers. So I think there was quite a bit of work put into that. Going forward, however, we need to be very specific in terms of what we're asking the consultant to provide to us at a workshop. And so I think it's worth spending some time tonight or at the next meeting or whenever to come up and say, we want a comparative analysis of this, this, and this. We want to see what other towns do. Whatever it is, we need to give them a work list, if you will, of things to prepare for the workshop so that there's no uncertainty going into that workshop as to what data, what materials, what recommendations, whatever it is that we're looking for that we're going to get. So I think it's important that we figure that part out before we schedule the workshop. Of course, you have to give the consultant time to go through the material too, something you and Mr. Sullivan will have to work through. But I think it's important that we know exactly what the product is going to be for that workshop.
With that said, Mr. Titlebaum, do you want to spend the next week or so in putting something together that we can send off to the consultant?
No, I want to spend the next week or so snorkeling. But
You can do that while you're snorkeling.
when I get back, I'm more than happy to hit this.
I just don't want to, again,
No.
I don't want to
I'll
spend
do it. I'll be
time.
more than happy to do it the week of town meeting. You can put it on the agenda. What does your meeting schedule look like before town meeting? I'm anticipating a couple nights. Are you doing the usual 1 hour?
6 o'clock,
sessions.
1 hour, Monday and Tuesday, in case there's any emergency stuff comes up, plus the warrants.
Why don't we come back to this? I'll try to get something ready for the board to discuss Tuesday, the 29th. I'll shell it out, come back to it. It'll be in your packets for Tuesday night, and we can try to figure out what it is from there, see if the board thinks that I've, hit some of the high points, or if there's other things to add. Because I think we have to be very specific in this whole process. We've got to identify each little thing we want to look at. We want to figure out what recommendations we want to get, how the recommendations are presented, what comparisons, and so on and so forth. Because the more clear we are, the less we're going to have the consultant floundering around doing stuff that we don't need them to do.
Mr. Holmes?
Yeah, and I appreciate Mr. Titlebaum's comments, being a consultant myself. And we're not, very simple. It's in the scope of work, Peter. Whatever we proposed in the scope of work is what we can ask for. To ask outside of that scope now would be foul ball. I know that all I'm looking for is the answers to the questions, basically, that we asked here when we interviewed the guy in his company. And those issues were not portrayed on the Saturday. And you said, oh, we have that data, we have that data. Well, okay, if we have it already, I mean, I'm not saying anybody didn't do any work. I mean, I understand the consultant's role. I know how hard it is, because you're trying to meet a target where most customers aren't real specific in the statement of work, in scope. So, but we did ask those questions here. You were here. We were all here. I mean, we just want those answers. I don't want to ask them for things that were outside of scope. So, if you could forward, Peter, I'll help you with it. If you forward Peter and I the scope of work document that you sent to them, or Mr. Sullivan, right? And we can look through it, pull the things out, and just make sure we got what we asked for. I don't think the board would need, if all those points are in there, I don't think we need anything in addition. To take the top number and figure it out one way or another with the recommendations, and then you have two numbers: what it would cost under the existing system with amendments, and what it would cost under the new system.
And I agree, we have those,
Right.
you can get them, but what I concern myself with is things as pre-treatment programs. You got industries. So what are we going to charge industrial companies or businesses within the community? And we never addressed the pre-treatment program. We're still talking about that. That's something that is an integral part of this.
And that's the list that Mr. Trapiano has in front of him. Is that what you're
No.
asking?
One of the pre-treatment, we had submitted to the board the actual copy of a draft pre-treatment program that speaks about specific businesses
Right.
and the product that they're contributing to the sewer plant and the costs associated with those. So when you start allocating costs, you have to figure out, okay, who has a cost and whose cost is greater. And then, yes, and so that has to be discussed as part of this program.
Right.
And what are we going to charge and how are we going to charge? And so that gives us, some direction also. So that's got to be incorporated. So that's part of it. When do you do that? Do you put that in place? It talks about the grease program, all these different costs that we get from businesses that have to be charged.
But
And
those
so
are
how do we
things.
do that? That's
Those are
part of it.
things, Mr. Chairman, if I might, through you.
Mhm.
Those are things that we're going to talk about with you. That's not for the consultant. He didn't look at that, did he?
No,
No, those are things we're going to discuss with you as
the
our
consultant looks at.
sewer wastewater treatment director.
We will do that. The consultant has to be aware of those things if we're asking him. Because
Was he
part of
made?
the things
Well,
we're
okay.
asking
Was he
him-
made aware of it?
He was made aware, absolutely.
Okay.
made aware. And so we're trying to move that forward. So that has to be moved forward. We've
All right.
tried for a long time to get that to move forward. So once that moves forward, that's part of this
Yeah.
also. And so, because he's aware that that's part of this rate setting, and I think part of his task was to give us some recommendations. And so that's all part of the recommendations as to the different ways, not to tell you what to do, but how everything, this is the different types of charges and how you do that. So
Well-
that's all I'm saying. This is all part of it. So I
Then
wanna
again,
make sure
then
it's
that's
all
why I
included.
say, Mr. Chairman, if you can get that document to Mr. Titlebaum and myself, we can go through it, pull out the statement of work, pull out the scope, what was in scope, what was out of scope, and then send this guy a phone. You can call him up and say, okay, listen, here's what we need delivered. Here's the deliverable that was promised for the money. Deliver it. And if it's something outside the scope and the Board of Sewer Commissioners want to pay some more money for that, that's fine too. But we should finish the first project before we start asking questions that are out of scope, I think, right?
I think of all the data that we've collected, we'll probably fulfill everything within the scope.
Okay.
Because
Good.
we've already gone beyond the scope on some items, so, but I think everything that we asked
Well,
for in the scope, we have. So
it
we'll
happens.
put that package together, we'll
It
get the
happens.
package out to you, and then we'll go. Because we have gone beyond the scope, especially
But if
with
something's in
water
the scope and you
levels.
didn't collect it, that's when it's bad.
Yeah, so we're beyond, so I don't think we have an issue
I
with
know
that.
that.
'Cause we're beyond the scope. So, but we'll get you the whole packet.
So, good. Thanks.
Thank you.
So we'll workshop
Yeah,
this
that'll work.
We
at some
can-
point.
We can do a workshop if the board wants on the 17th or the 24th of May, if people will be ready by then.
I think we'll be ready by then. So the 24th of May.
May.
May's not going.
That's my mother's birthday, the 24th. We could have a cake and glad you're
Absolutely.
I'll go away again if you want to pay.
No
for it.
problem, cake is in. There we go. We can be singing, nobody will want to come to that meeting if they think we're gonna sing.
She'll walk out and say she's not my mother.
Might be.
Maybe.
No, Memorial Day weekend would be the 26th of May. The 20
Yeah, so the 24th isn't gonna work.
So we wouldn't be doing it
So
that
it'd be the
weekend.
17th.
Have to
Nobody will be
go to
around.
17th.
17th.
Good catch, Derek.
Thank you.
Yep. Maybe you could
17th?
tentatively.
I'll put in tentatively for the 17th.
You know, I want all the sewer users out there to realize that they can keep their sewer provider when this is all said and done.
Maybe.
Hey, you can't do the 17th.
Why?
Because Monday is Victory Day in Canada. That's a long weekend.
But you're not in Canada, so forget it.
So you want to discuss the process? Is that what you said?
Process.
Oh, process.
Process.
We couldn't do a process on the week of the 17th.
But we can do a process.
We could do that.
Okay, I'll take care of that next.
Okay, moving on. Discussion of intern program at BSU on the solar project.
That was something I believe Mr. Holmes mentioned a week or 2 weeks ago.
Yes. I just wanted to bring it up again because I meant to go by there Sunday. I will get the young lady's information tomorrow. What's tomorrow, Wednesday? Tomorrow, Thursday, I'll get her information. Yeah, I spoke about this a while back in one of my tours there through the family pet store. There's a young lady there who attends Bridgewater State, right? And she's majoring in, I'm not laughing at this, but I just found it odd, green energies or something. I didn't know they had a major in that
Program.
today. So I joked with her about being a tree hugger, you know. And she said, no, I'm not really a tree hugger, but I'm very interested in green energy. So, you know, I thought, well, what a great idea if we could get 3 or 4 of the kids from Wareham, from that class, with the permission of the teacher, of course, to come down and participate with us from start to finish on our solar project at the wastewater treatment plant. So that's why I wanted to put it on the agenda. I mean, if there's no objections, you know, I'll get her information, give her your information, and then maybe, I think it'd be great to have some kids come down, and especially our own kids from Wareham,
Absolutely.
who are studying to be a major in green energy, right, development, to come and participate with you from start to finish. And then what an education that would be to actually see one, right, being built from start to finish. So, you know, I know we've kicked it around and mentioned it, but if you don't have any problem with that, and the board doesn't have any problem, I'll go ahead and shoot by there the next day or two and give her your information.
Absolutely.
Because she was very interested. I mean, she got all excited about
This
that.
would be great.
She had friends who would be excited about participating with you as well.
We're at contract, so it'd be interesting for her to see that part of it. Right now, we're at the part of actually trying to design. We're talking about emergency. There's really heck of a lot of credits that the new program offers if you do an emergency. So if you lose the grid, presently, if you lose grid power, you also lose solar power.
Yeah.
There's a new program now to say that if you lose grid power, you maintain solar power. So during the day, I can emergency run the fridge. So we're at that. So it'd be interesting to see that process.
Yeah. Oh,
and
absolutely. I
then transition to
think-
the design, because we're beginning design. So then she can see the actual design process,
Right.
and then design build. So it's a good time to get in to see the negotiation, designing, building, and fruition. So I
Well, that's
would be
what I'm
more than
thinking.
happy
How
to
often
have
do
it.
kids actually get a chance to do that?
Not often.
You know, they could read it in a book and they can study it, but her town is actually just starting to build one, and I think that, have you got a card with you?
Probably.
card?
Probably. Look
If
at my
not, I'll
screen
catch
case,
up
but
with you, yeah.
I may have one. But yeah, that's.
Yeah, I think
really,
it'd be great. If
that'd
the
be
board
great.
doesn't have
That'd
any
be great.
issues, I'll be happy to extend that invitation to her to get in touch with Mr. Campina.
I think it's
Mr.
right.
Sullivan, do you have any issues? No?
I have lots of issues.
Oh, yeah? Do you have any issues with this particular?
I think it was Rodney
Yeah,
Dangerfield.
issues,
That's
all
like
right.
that.
I'll give
Real
you that.
issues, yeah. What you learn in the
What do you
books and
want?
what you actually do in the
Yeah.
field are two
He's
separate
at the other
items.
end
This
of the
is
room.
great.
He's not sure how to
I
drink
love
his
it.
water. He's not sure what hand to use.
Sure you don't want to kiss?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for
Okay.
putting that on the agenda.
No problem. Mr. Campino, if this becomes an option, let me know. We can contact Dr. Diane Jennings from Bridgewater State University, who basically heads up Fred Clark's outreach program to the communities, where we might be able to get an intern. Actually, they pay the intern from the school, so.
Okay. After
Just
the
let me know.
contact, Mr.
See what we
Chairman.
can do.
Yeah. I was trying to get it for free.
They may also get credit,
Credits?
college credits, yeah.
And credits.
If they don't get both.
There's a-
potential for cash,
Oh, yeah.
because I don't want him to quit the pet store.
Oh, okay.
He's very good at the pet store.
Next item up, Mr. Tropiano.
The next item is questions of sand, debris on stormwater drainage.
I believe that was Mr. Holmes asked that last week. I thought that basically the question was with water pollution control being involved with the sand and the sewer, which we're not, as far as I know. That's the stormwaters, which municipal maintenance handles. And it's a little bit of a difficult situation depending on where the sand ends up in the system. Because you can only dig, we have a special truck that goes in and cleans them out, but it doesn't always clean all the way through.
think
It's
there's a
two
lot of-
separate, Mr. Chairman,
Lot of
two
broken pipes.
separate entities. Sewer, sanitary sewer, because you have, it's funny, they use sewer for both, but you get storm sewer drains and sanitary sewer. And sanitary is a closed system. That's the sewer. That's when you flush your toilet, it comes out. That's all enclosed. It's not open. There's no, there's nothing that comes from the outside into it other than what's directly piped. Whereas stormwater is collected in what we call catch basins. They're just open basins that water goes into. And then it's from there, it goes out to probably an outfall, could be on a marsh, could be in the ocean, could be in a pond. The point in case we're talking about sewer, that I actually watched someone watch down the bay of their garage of oils and antifreeze into a storm drain. You see, because they don't have, we've done away with the policy in Wareham to have internal floor drains. So when you wash, you have a garage and you wash your floor, it's supposed to go into a floor drain, into an oil separator, and then to whether your septic system or into, well, that, we don't have that any longer. So folks are just literally, they blocked all that up and they're washing it onto the parking lot and it goes out into these storm drains. Very, very bad. It's contaminants of the storm drain. So that's something but so my point is municipal maintenance through the MS4 program is in charge of that. And we actually in Wareham have a permit that we have to adhere to when it comes to stormwater. It's a regulated, lately that the EPA has regulated that. If you look on the package we give you, there's the actual law. So all that happens and has to happen. So you know what I mean? So we don't have anything to do with it. Now, going forward, we had talked about this last year. If you remember, Mr. Holmes, we had talked about when it gets to the treatment part, because someday they're going to want you to treat this before it goes out. Then maybe we could have the sewer plant get involved in the actual treatment. It may go to collection and then treated, then put out into the ocean, because that's the next leg of this whole process. And we'd be more than happy to work, because we do treatment, to be part of that. But as of right this second, the sand and all that is done through municipal maintenance.
And Mr. Chair, the soil that's and sand and debris that's pulled out of there by the truck is actually considered contaminated.
It is
So
contaminated.
we can't reuse that for anything else.
Costs money to get rid of it, too, a lot.
huge amount of money. We went to, with Dave Bernard and myself, went to a stormwater seminar a few weeks back, and to hear the different directors, municipal directors, talk about the cost to get rid of that sand, it was just astronomical, astronomical.
We also went to a seminar on this with the new rules that are coming through that we have to start adhering to in 2014.
Yeah,
And there's some grants available. The grants didn't begin to touch the cost of this.
got a lot of potholes near those
So-
storm drains.
Yeah, thank you, Mr.
Did you know
Chairman.
that?
So I guess the problem, as I see it, is, well, there are several trees to this. We have all this sand on the road that we laid out over the winter, right? To treat snow and ice. All of our streets are full of this sand. Today, a bunch of that sand went into the storm drain. Sunday, a week ago Sunday, had 3 inches of rain, a lot of that sand. So is our goal, other than beautification, because it looks like crap, right? And when you clean the street, it looks great. But is the goal to just let it go down the traps at this point?
Part of the, yes, the goal is this, in that packet, you can read it, it talks about, it goes into the catch basins. Now
So
you have
we want the sand.
Absolutely, we want to collect it, absolutely. Now, the second part of that is to have a program in place to clean it.
Clean them.
You set out priority areas, and you actually have to clean all this. That's extensive, you see, and I don't know if we're in a position to do that, but that's extensive, because you have to have a dedicated plan to that, and you gotta go, and I just wanna be.
So
That's,
well, that answer doesn't make any sense.
well, it's
Because
reality.
your first answer was, yes, we want people to put the sand in the
No, nature puts it in the sand. We put sand on the streets.
Nature
puts
doesn't put
in
it
there.
all in there.
Well-
People are gonna sweep it in there.
Well, I don't know, if people are sweeping it literally into the basin, that's fine, because it's collected.
Oh, it's fine.
That's right, but we have to go get it. The town itself has to go get it, and so that's up to the
Right.
department. That's
So-
a budget item.
I mean, do we have, I thought we had some kind of vehicle that was like a vacuum cleaner that could go.
We do. We have a street sweeper, and that
Okay.
has to be done so many times a year, and again, it's personnel, and so I think, if you're not speaking for the director of Mr. Maintenance, but I'm sure he's
No.
working on that.
Well-
But my point is, you're talking about the basins themselves, they need to be maintained, and to get started is extensive, and I think that's something you can sit and talk with Mr. Manado about, but yeah, you'll see that there's quite a bit there. It's,
When somebody calls the house and says, I have all this sand in front of my house, I'm gonna clean it, I'm gonna sweep it down the basin, the answer then is, go ahead?
well, if it's on their property, I have to keep it on their property, but if, in other words,
It's in the street.
the streets, that's right, so if somebody, because the water's gonna take it there anyways, that's the design of it. So if somebody it's in the street, the sander came by, put the sand in the street, winter's over, snow's done
Right.
melted, you got all this sand, and if somebody doesn't like it, and they wanna sweep it
Bless you.
down, I would like
Yeah.
to see them pick it up, and put it in their dump truck and take it someplace, so that'd be nice. But if they called municipal maintenance and got some clear direction as to when that basin's gonna be cleaned and what they're planning on doing, I think that would be the more appropriate thing to do, to get some concrete advice from the person that's gonna actually clean it up. But generally speaking, that's what they catch. The basin's there to catch all the sand, the debris and everything, and then it distributes it to however it's gonna go, whether it's gonna go to the ocean, a series of manholes or whatever they're gonna do. But it's designed to catch. It's called a catch basin. Catch sand, catch debris. That's what it's designed to do. But the second part of that is a program, a very extensive program to go clean all this up and stockpile the sand, and then figure out how you're going to get rid of the sand. That's all part of it, absolutely.
And so I guess, through you to Mr. Sullivan then, is that your answer as well, Chief?
No,
Because,
my-
I mean,
my answer-
you're running the department who actually, I guess it's not wastewater who deals with the sand.
No.
My
It's
answer is
maintenance.
this. We do have the street sweeper, but we put it out as a schedule. And
Right.
It's public safety first, so you do the primary roads and the dangerous intersections and such that would have the
Okay.
sand in there. Then you move to the secondary roads. Then you move beyond that. And the honest answer is, at that point, you're in the winter season again, and there's probably roads that are not being touched to be sanded.
Yeah.
Now you take the next step. We do have the truck to clean the catch basins. And as you
right.
go through with the amount of catch basins that we have in this town, which is a massive town,
Right.
land-wise. That's what everybody forgets about.
I think
that.
one night we talked about the number and how many, if somebody did so many a day, how many, we talked about that
Yeah,
one night.
and it's,
Not that long
It
ago.
was more than a few years.
you're
Yeah.
right, so,
So let me ask you this then, Mr. Sullivan. We have the equipment to do both. We have the equipment to clean the sand off the street with the sand streeper,
we have
so
a
the street sweeper,
correct.
and we have the equipment to clean up the basins,
We
to
have
go
a
in,
catch basin truck.
suck the basin out, and go dump the sand somewhere.
We don't have the labor.
So the problem is, we don't have the labor to do that. We don't have a team of people. We don't have, well, we only have, what, 9 total people. So you're talking at least 2 people a day to do these 2 jobs. 25% of the workforce.
If I remember.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I guess my question is there other people, we talked a little bit, you and I were talking about that this morning, are there other people that we can get, either from another department or, a temporary hire or something to get this job done? I mean, that seems very dangerous. Hey, listen, if you're driving in your car, you don't give a rip about the sand. I mean, it looks like hell. The place looks much better when it's clean, but if you're riding on a bicycle, that sand is very dangerous.
Well,
That bike, you can slide on that sand. I mean, it is slippery when you walk on it, too.
we used to sub this out. Even when we had our machine, we subbed it out because we
The
didn't have
labor?
the maintenance. We used to,
Patrick,
it used to-
was it just the labor you
yeah,
subbed
no,
out,
we used
or
we
did
had
you
a
sub up
company
the
that we
job?
used to hire. It used to be in the budget. We had it in a line item in the budget. If I remember right, we used to only spend about $10,000 or $15,000 with them to do, and I think they did the main runs mostly or wherever they could for us. And then municipal maintenance would do whatever they could with our own sweeper, which we had. But with the present budget, there's just no money for it, Steve. There's no way to sub anybody in here. There's no way to get anybody in those machines. I mean, that's part of the problem we have right now. There is no money.
Yeah.
In fact, Mr. Menard was out the other day running the catch basin cleaning
Yes, he was.
himself.
We have, just so everybody understands, that the issue is that we have a dollar. That dollar has to go in a bunch of different directions. We have to make best use of the dollar. Unfortunately, we just can't do everything.
Well,
And as it goes along, we're gonna do less and less.
and this is where, and Mr. Chairman, this is where you and I have spoken for hours at length over the years, where you have maintenance people, 5 maintenance groups being paid by the taxpayers. The left has no clue what the right is doing and doesn't really care, and that's a problem, because our total number of maintenance people is a lot more than 9. The incident the other day with the guy sending me the letter about the guy raking leaves, sitting in his truck, yakking with his buddy, and then he raked some leaves. He didn't really do any work for over an hour. And what lazy municipal maintenance guys I sent in to Mr. Sullivan, come to find out, it was either one of your guys, or one of the school guys, or one of the district guys, because Mr. Menard didn't have anybody raking leaves that day. So it wasn't our municipal maintenance guy. But that guy could have been, instead of talking with his buddy raking leaves, he could have been out using the piece of equipment to do the sanding if we were combining efforts, like we keep talking about, but no action. No action taken. So it's a pitch for the dollar. I understand the dollar. You keep saying that. And I'll keep throwing it back at you that we're paying money. We have a decent number of people to do these jobs, and we're already paying them, but they're just under different control. And we need to get them under a single control so that everybody's working at the same, everybody's in the boat rowing towards getting the streets. Right now it's streets, it's sand, it's beautification. Over the summer it's paint and trash and all this. And we should have 30 people moving in the same direction, not 9, and then 4 over there, 3 over there, 10 over there. It's the same old speech, but we haven't changed a bit. And overrides being passed will only put that effort to bed, because nobody cares once they get the money. They'll just spend it. So,
Okay.
unfortunately,
I have to say
that's
something
the
about
story.
that. I have to say a little something about that. All right, so We have people in the school department, we have people in the sewer department, we have people in municipal maintenance, okay? So we have 3 different groups of people
You have
that
2
do.
water districts,
that-
too.
Well, the water districts, we have no say of.
Well,
and
they're still in a
it
truck
doesn't matter. We
with an
can't-
emblem on
It
it.
doesn't matter. We have no say over it at all. We have no control over the water districts. We never will at this point. That's totally a separate legislation. We have no control over what they say. So all we can do is deal with the people we have.
Who pays them,
Now,
Patrick?
hypothetically-
Mr. Chairman, can I ask Mr. Trapiano who pays those people?
Let him finish and then you ask the question.
Oh.
Let me finish.
Because it makes it sound like taxpayers
Well,
are paying for that.
That's not the point. The point is, hypothetically, if we take the sewer guys, they're out doing sewer business, and they're busy all the time. And I know because I see them out there. And I know that the people that are doing the school stuff, I know they're busy in the schools, cleaning the schools, doing their things, taking care of their grounds, doing whatever. So they're busy in that. And I know our 9 municipal maintenance people are expected to do everything. All the rest of the stuff, they're expected to do it all. There is no way they can do all of the stuff that they're committed to do or that we expect them to do. It's impossible. You can't do it with 9. We've been through this before. There used to be over 50 of these people running around to clean all this. And the school had their own people, and the sewer had their own people, and we still had to try to get things done. Okay, that's the way it worked. And there was these pieces of equipment. We had a trash truck. That trash truck doesn't even move, I'll bet, anymore, because first off, we got rid of the barrels, in order to try to save some money. But that trash truck used to run every day. Used to be people to run that. And there's equipment and things that we have, but they need to have people to run them, and we don't have it, Steve. We just don't. Now, as far as the districts go, I want to make this perfectly clear, because people have to understand, yes, the taxpayers pay for the districts. There's no question about the taxpayers pay for the district. But as far as the town government is concerned, we have no say, none, over what they do, what they spend their money on, what they clean, if they're sitting for an hour on the side of the road, which for leaves or whatever, and I can't even fathom that, because even their groups, even their people are limited. Even they try to keep their people. As a matter of fact, I think the other night, didn't they reduce their budget? I think they did. So everybody's in the same boat. Look, 2.5 is phased in bankruptcy, like it or not. Has been. We've been saying this. I've been saying this since probably 1995. I got on the finance committee. And it's just coming home to roost. There's just not enough people to run the equipment. There's not enough people in the government. There's not enough money to pay for it. It's just that simple. And we've gone over and over what some of the reasons are that for. Was there some mismanagement along the way? There probably could have been. Who knows? You could say, okay, they didn't do exactly what they should have done or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, we have financial issues, period. And until we resolve those financial issues, these things are going to stay there. Sand's going to stay on the road. Things are not going to get done as quickly as they do. Things are going to get done based on Band-Aids. Whatever emergency thing comes up, they're going to put a Band-Aid on it. And that's how it's going to be. So we either got to get used to it, or we got to do something else to help our government out. Simple as that.
Next.
Well, do I get to thank him?
Yeah.
Do I get to thank him?
Of course you can.
Chairman? I'd like to thank Mr. Trapiano for admitting that it is the taxpayers who pay for these districts. I mean, somehow we have nothing to say about it. We're all taxpayers. We all have something to say about it. It really is disappointing to hear it's not even worth trying. Just can't be done. I mean, I don't believe you believe that. I think I know you a little better than that.
I actually tried.
Everything is worth a try, Patrick.
I tried.
But to consolidate departments, I don't think so.
To be honest with you, I lost an election because, to be honest with you, I'm going to be right there square with you. I put it on the ballot to fold those 2 districts into the town and combine this whole thing. I was one of 5 selectmen who did that. We put it on the ballot. We did it. And that year, I was chairman of the board, and I ran and lost as a result of that. That thing failed 5-1, and I also lost my seat on the board of selectmen.
Well,
So
I'm
I know
sorry to hear
exactly
that.
what you're saying, but we tried it. And let me tell you something, they made it quite clear out there that they didn't want it. They made it clear.
There are
They
three,
didn't want that.
if I might finish now.
Yeah, go ahead.
There are three groups of people who are not included in that. Once again, you have the town, you have the school department, you have the water treatment facility. We have all these groups of people. And I'm sorry, but to say that it can't be done, it doesn't work, when you combine efforts, you have good, solid management and direction in those efforts, you get things done. So I don't believe the fact that you just let it go and say, oh, that's not going to work, and the sand's not going to get picked up. And 10 guys out doing sand work today, as opposed to raking leaves or, you know, painting a door inside somewhere, if they were all directed in the same, if everybody was in the same boat, moving in the same direction, you would get things done. I can't believe that you wouldn't. I see it all the time. So I think that, you know, we can't give up on that because, again, you haven't sold people on this money. My friend got mad at me for calling it fairy tale dollars because they're not real today, except in the people's wallets. And I think that he gets upset every time I use that term, so if you get upset, I'm sorry. But in fact, you can't count on that money yet because the people haven't given it to you. And I think that this is, when they hear things like this is what drives them to the negative. And it's not even worth trying to consolidate departments because it can't be done. I'm not talking about districts. To work together as the town, the school, and the water treatment facility, I find that disheartening. I know Alan and I aren't going to give up on this regionalization stuff and combining people together because I think you get more done, even if you only have a few people, you get more done if everybody's working in the same direction. I'll be quiet, but I just believe that that's good management, Patrick, and I've seen that and recommended it to businesses for 15 years now. And it works every time when you put more people focused on a project than saying, oh, you can't do that, you work for the schools, you can't do that, you work for Mr. Campino, you can't participate, you work for Mr. Sullivan. I mean, come on, they all work for the taxpayer. So, you can argue that to get people to vote for a 2.5 and call it bankruptcy, but it has nothing to do with that. This is about people and worth ethic and just better management.
I can't let that go.
I want to hear this.
I cannot let that go. I cannot let that go. First off, nobody was talking about consolidating amongst our own town government, which you're talking about consolidating the school maintenance people and the sewer people and having some overlap in maintenance. Nobody was talking about
exactly
that.
What I was talking about.
You were talking about the districts.
That's not true.
And that's what you talked about was the districts. And we cannot consolidate the districts into the town. As far as I'm not against consolidating and putting people together in our own section of government here at all, not for a second. And I don't want to be accused of that because, look, whatever we can do that overlaps, wherever that can, we should do that. And I totally agree with that 100%. But as far as the districts go, there's nothing we can do. And I think I made that clear right from the beginning of this conversation, that the districts are the things we have no control over. Not the town, not the school, not the wastewater control. I'm not saying that's our business. We can control that. And yes, we can take care of the overlap. But we certainly cannot do anything with the districts. It's not us to do. It's not ours. That's what I was trying to say.
Mr. Titlebaum?
No, Mrs. Whiteside, this is an important conversation.
It is important.
Well, just briefly,
I think this is
Please,
thought it was my turn.
stop. Everybody, one at a time. Everybody,
like that, I'm respectful for one.
understand, but let's one at a time. You know, these are discussions. I have no problem listening, going through it all, but everybody has a chance to speak. Finish speaking, and the next person starts, please. Mr. Titlebaum.
well, one of the things, I think we are, and we will have to look at consolidation of function between all of the different departments that come under the town of Wareham seal, which is, of course, the departments Mr. Sullivan runs, the departments that the superintendent of the school runs.
Next week's discussion.
What I will say is you've got a school superintendent who hasn't been in place for even a year yet, and yet I'm already seeing more cooperation, more going on between Mr. Sullivan and the school department administration in the past, I want to say, 9 months, than you probably saw in the prior 20 years. So understand that these things don't just happen overnight. They take time, but they've got the most important part done already, which is to establish the relationship. Now that they've done that, now that we've got the board supportive of each other, which is another thing that took some time, now we can start talking about the actual nuts and bolts of it, the consolidation of the function. Gee, you've got a grounds crew. Gee, we've got a municipal maintenance department. Gee, how can we get together and get things done? But you've got to get the precursors in place first before you can do that. And there's a lot of bad history there that had to be overcome. I think Mr. Sullivan's done an outstanding job of that. I think the school committee and Superintendent Shaver Hood have done an outstanding job of that. I think we've done a good job of that. So we'll continue to work together. Let's see what we can get done with them. I know we're already having discussions about possibly doing vehicle maintenance together. That's something we're talking about. Perhaps, buildings and grounds, municipal maintenance. Maybe that's another area where there can be a joint focus. But these are all things that we can talk about amicably with them and wait until, frankly, Mr. Sullivan's heard us tonight. I'm sure anybody else listening to us has heard us tonight. And let's see what they come up with and come back to us with so we can help them make it happen. That's all I've got to say.
Mrs. Whiteside?
I'd just like to comment, first of all, I didn't mean to insult you, Mr. Holmes, but what Mr. Titlebaum says is absolutely accurate. Mr. Sullivan and Mr. McMillan have been working very hard to figure out what consolidations can be made. That is an ongoing process and has been for several months. The fact that the Board of Selectmen has no control over either of the fire water districts is a fact. What no one has mentioned is that each one of us belongs to one of those districts, and we can choose to go to the meetings, and we can choose to partake of whatever it is that they're talking about. We can choose to vote. We can choose to run for any of the offices there. So if people have an issue with those districts, then step up to the plate, play the game the way that you have, change from within.
I think I said that. We are citizens.
Right, you did say that, and I think that's, I agree with you that
87 people show up to the water district meeting. They spend close to $2 million.
Actually, 10 million.
yeah,
10
it
million.
was 10.
So,
Yep.
Let me just make a quick comment.
But I do want to say to Mr. Titlebaum that I appreciate his comments, and I think that over the last couple of months, every chance I get, I praise Ms. Hood. I told her that 2 weeks ago, not that she needs me to think she's doing a good job, but she's doing a good job, and I think that Mr. Sullivan, of course, he knows how I feel about his job. So I do believe that, but, in this day and age, when we're under such, we don't have a dollar, we don't have money, there is no 2.5 in place at this point override. Time is of the essence, and you can't rely on 2 people to make all these changes. So I think that maybe a suggestion of getting some assistance, maybe a couple of subgroups between the 2 boards and the school department and the board and the Board of Selectmen and the town department heads get together and create some mini groups and help these 2 people out. You can't expect them to do it all together, and every week that goes by, we spend another week's worth of money.
That was
And
the
before you know
intention.
it, we're out of money.
That was the
So-
intention of the Public Safety Action Committee, and I'm not sure where that got to.
So, anyway, I think that was a good discussion. I think it's important.
Let me just
Discussion.
wrap this up for everyone. We have on the agenda for next week a list which says issues and items for the Board of Selectmen. I put this together, sent it off to everybody. It's up to 29 items, which of course will never get done in a year. These are short-term, long-term, and mid-term type of goals. Some people call it visioning, whatever, but this is an actual plan for the Board of Selectmen. We'll discuss it next week. But just to make everybody understand, we have number 8, status updates, PSAC. That's the Public Safety Action Committee, which involves the district and the town as far as public safety complex, et cetera, we talked about. Next item is town and district shared initiatives. I basically remind everybody again, I went to 3 different meetings at the Onset Fire Station. I physically went there, talked to them, and brought the Prudential Committee from the Wareham Fire and Water District there to sit down and talk about sharing some initiatives. That group has been put together. We should get some response to that over the next 3 to 4 months. Hopefully, we'll have some pieces come out. Number 13, review of all town operations to facilitate long-term budget goals and improve streamlined services, inclusion of school committee and finance committee. This basically is exactly what we're talking about, looking at everything we do in the town and finding ways to make it work better, save money where we can, but provide better service, et cetera. So this is all on the table and will be on the table going forward, because without doing these things, an override will never solve our problem completely. We need to do more than just the override.
That's a fact.
So this is something that we're committed to, and I made a point that I want to see this get done. Thank you. Next.
All right, next, any other sewer business?
We had one piece, I'll let it go, Mr. Sullivan, if you want. I believe there was a mention of a pilot program, and I think, again, Mr. Holmes wasn't sure what that was. Do you need an explanation of that? You have in your packet paperwork on it? And I think if you read it, it's very self-explanatory.
I got that.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah. Mr. Tropiano?
Next, we come to the,
What about the sewer business that Mr. Trapiano raised? About the letter? Did you guys already do that?
No, we haven't done anything with that one yet.
But from the business owner that had the,
That was
it wasn't, it's not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda. We'll take care of it as a separate item.
We'll get to it.
so we haven't done anything
No,
to,
we
has
haven't done
anybody
anything.
responded to the guy other than?
No,
you?
yeah, well, let's
told
put
him
it
we're
this
looking at
way, we
Huh?
told him we were working on
We'll
it,
work on it.
so,
He's happy?
Yeah.
For now?
yeah, for now, he's okay with it, so we'll deal with it.
As long as you don't need a monthly, you're good.
Next is the town administrator's report. You're up, Derek.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The first item is that the Powers and Sullivan audit for FY13 and the basic financials, the management letter, and also the CFA. You have all 3 items. They are going to be placed on the town website. If they're not on now, they're going to be in within the next hour. Believe it or not, Mr. Underhill's still working over there. I would ask that the Board of Selectmen review it. We can put questions together. Mr. Peacock from Powers and Sullivan is more than willing to come to a meeting. I know that they want to go in front of the audit committee as well. And I would say we try and coordinate our efforts if he's going to come in front of the audit committee and the selectmen.
May I? I read just one of the reports, and I was impressed with how many things have been, I'll call it cleaned up, knocked off, or taken care of. And there is clearly some progress, some very good progress. We still are being criticized on some of the things, but I would commend you and the individuals who have worked very hard with you to make the progress that we have.
Thank you.
Just one point. I went through the management letter first because I was curious about that more than anything else. And I mentioned probably a year ago, I said that we were in the best shape we had been in a long time as far as our accounting and our auditing compared to where we were. And we've obviously taken the next step up. My one concern is that reading what they're asking for, this is the first time I've seen Powers and Sullivan actually give us a list of suggestions of what we need to do. All the other reports used to just say material weakness, whatever, but never made any suggestions of what to do. So I was happy to see this because that was one of the things I always questioned why they weren't doing that. But looking at the list that they do list, I would ask that you look at what we have for staff right now, you know, from the Director of Finance, yourself, Town Accountant, and, you know, person working in the office, whether or not we have the ability to actually implement everything that they want to see us do. Because again, from my training background, there's a huge amount of work here that they're going to require of us to get to the point of making everything with no material weaknesses. So you have unfortunately a daunting task in front of you still.
It's not just cleaning up the rest of the audit or implementing their suggestions. For the FY15 tax rate to be set, we will need the audit completed. We will need free cash certified, and that would have to be before December 31st. So essentially, for that really to happen, you're talking about that being done in November. So the work that needs to go to be put into that, you know, we've been talking about adding assistant town accountant. We've tried to use basically hired contractors, and the problem is they're not always available year in, year out. And as you know, whenever you're doing any accounting work, the time to get somebody up and running, and trying to figure out what the person was thinking, what they were doing a year ago without having that person available is a daunting task and sets you back even further. We have in the FY15 budget allocated for an assistant town accountant position. The problem is, unless that person was hired today, how do you hire somebody right when you're closing the books, have the town accountant stop what they're doing to train them? We're speaking with Mr. Peacock from Powers and Sullivan. They're trying to work with us to get this done. They don't do us any favors. I'm going to be honest on it. That's not their job. However, they will try and work with us to get the information. It is probably, besides the budget, one of my biggest concerns right now.
Because we were put on notice that, you know, that if we don't get this done by a certain date, we won't get a tax rate set.
You're correct.
And we cannot afford to have that happen.
You know, I'd like to ask a question. Back in the 90s when I was on the finance committee, we always had our free cash certified prior to October town meeting. I can't remember the time when we did. Matter of fact, we never did. We never not had it certified prior to town meeting, which means we had our recap all done. As you well know, we did the process. Everything was done. Got it certified. Bing, here's the number. It might have only happened a few days sometimes before it, a week before, depending on whatever. But we always had it certified by the time we went into town meeting, always. And I just want to know what's changed. Why is there so much difficulty to get to this position where we used to get to all the time? That's what it's just a question. I'm just trying to get a feel for what's gone wrong, what's changed, what's different than it is today.
I actually don't know of the last time we had free cash certified in time for town meeting.
Well, you wouldn't because you weren't here, but
Right.
believe me, it was pretty consistent that we did. And I couldn't tell you when we did at this point because I hadn't been around here for a while, but when I was here, consistently, and the whole time I was on the Board of Selectmen, same thing. Consistently, we had it every single time.
We've had turnover in the accounting department.
Well, and that's what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to get to the reason, that's all.
The reason is we fired town accountant, to replace it for a while. We brought someone else in that didn't work out well, and the town administrator decided to be the town accountant. Sorry. And the end result is that every time we did these things over the last 5 years, 6 years, you go farther and farther behind. So everybody's still trying to catch up, and the records are wrong, make mistakes, et cetera. Try and catch up, you make adjusting entries. Adjusting entries is the road to doom usually.
Yeah, usually.
And therefore, we're trying to get a system caught up at the same time having to run on a daily basis. And you can't do it with a set small staff. We should have done 2 or 3 years ago, hired a group of people to come in and clean up all the old and let the people who were in place move forward with the new. We never did that. We had someone sitting there trying to do both jobs at the same time without any extra help, and that was a turning point. We've never caught up since then.
So what's our chances of getting back to where we used to be?
We would have to have some money dedicated, because this will take money, because you have to hire some people that are qualified to do it. You can't train them on the job right now.
One of the hardest things, if you go back to your school days, if you will, what's harder, to keep on moving along or trying to catch up to do the work? Once you fall behind.
Obviously, the catch-up is the difference.
And that's what we had essentially what was deemed an unaudible year. We had a year that they could not effectively audit, and we still have issues coming up from that year. So when you're recreating, when you're trying to follow journal entries, I mean, it is a complete nightmare for the accounting department. And I appreciate the work that's been done out of that office, out of the treasurer collector's office. The treasurer collector's office had not been as stable as it was. We would have been 10 times worse of a situation. We wouldn't have gotten our tax rate set for a few years. So this is,
So
we're
so
making-
basically, this happened when we blew up the accounting department by getting rid of Bliss.
Say so?
Yeah.
That was a start.
Huh?
It's probably a good start.
Yeah.
That's where it started.
Wow.
Mr. Tattelbaum.
Something else, it's not just us, it's also Department of Revenue. If I remember correctly, in December, when we had a discussion with them about the tax rate and everything else, at that time, their goal was to try to get everybody set by the end of the year. I think the conversation was on December 9th or thereabouts, and they had done 70 municipalities, and they had 270, 280 in the pipeline. So it's not just the town of Wareham that's not getting it done by town meeting, it's pretty much the whole state at this point. Now, whether that means all 351 cities and towns have dropped the ball, whether that means the Department of Revenue, their reporting requirements have changed, whether it's harder to get them the numbers. I'm not a money guy, so I don't know. But we weren't the only ones who were in that boat this past December, I can tell you that.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan, anything else?
Yes, again, I'd like to, if you could review that, and we'll bring that forward. The other packet that you have is something that came in. We have the report from the Department of Revenue, Division of Local Services. I'm actually going to give this copy to Mr. Campina. We have from the Enterprise Fund. What you've also received as part of that is a memorandum and two appendices, if you will, Appendix A and B. And what this goes is there's recommendations throughout the report, and this goes through the main information. It's a 2-page document. It's getting late, but I think the key element in this, and
Mr.
which
Campina, you can go home if you like.
I was going to get a copy of the report, so I want to see it.
Oh, okay.
That's all. I don't mind sitting there.
No problem.
I have no problem.
I apologize, I should have said something when we finished.
if you don't mind coffee stains, you can have this. That's, thank you. I would like to read just the update on DOR recommendation 5. I think it's important that we have it out there. And then this is something as well that we'll try and get up on the website. This did not come to us in electronic form, so we're going to try and scan it in. The DOR recommendation 5. During the review and ensuing discussions, the Department of Revenue did not like that the town had 2 funds for the water pollution control facility, an operating fund known as 60,000 and a capital projects fund known as 60,001. The capital projects fund was created by the town accountant in FY10. Such a fund is not allowable, and there was no authority to create such a fund. This fund contained betterment prepayments and betterment revenue. Tracking the betterment prepayments and having them in a segregated account is good practice, and as part of the remedy, there will be an account set up in Fund 60,000 called Fund Balance Reserved for Betterment Debt Service. This fund will have $3,431,700 in it, which is the difference between the betterment debt, both principal and interest, remaining to be paid, and the apportioned betterments left to collect. Attached are 2 documents labeled A and B. Document A is a memo from the Department of Revenue on how to properly allocate the funds from the 60,001 account. Document B is a spreadsheet showing how the funds will be allocated. A simple review of this is that the fund balance in the water pollution control facility, when you put the 2 funds together, is $7,388,995, of which $3,431,700 is reserved for betterment debt service. $435,829 must be used for like projects such as infrastructure. The $296,113 deficit is part of the final bond, and as such, is actually part of the betterment debt. The unreserved fund balance of $3,817,579 is essentially retained earnings and would be certified as such if a recertification were requested. The retained earnings should be used in future projects to help offset the cost to ratepayers. Those would be capital projects. This covers recommendation number 5 of the Department of Revenue report. I think that's one of the main elements and concerns that we've had about the water pollution control facility. As part of the DOR report, we also had Powers and Sullivan go back and look through those numbers. We could not do a forensic audit for every single dollar. That would have taken literally probably a year and 6 figures. But in going through it, they followed some of the entries that were done in FY10 that went back and forth 27 times. Again, that's part of the nightmare of the issue. However, they were able to put this together. The Department of Revenue has recommended in a memo and accepted this. I think this puts us on the firmest ground with the water pollution control facility that we've had. We've also taken other recommendations on how we're budgeting, including budgeting the betterment revenues, included what we'll take out of the reserve account, because we know what we're going to get for betterment revenue is always going to be less than what the actual portion cost is, as people have prepaid. So this is, at this point in time, this is one of the clearest pictures that we've had of the entire facility. So I appreciate what the Department of Revenue has done, what Powers and Sullivan has done, and what Mr. Campina, Mr. Foster, and Ms. Lazan. There was a lot of work that went into this. So I'd ask that you read through it. I would ask that you read the memorandum first to go through, read that, and then go through the study, because it's interesting. While we were working with them and before, we've been able to implement some of the recommendations, which I'm happy to say.
What's that? Any questions of the town administrator? Title one?
I just would like to
Mr. Westside?
compliment the people who worked very hard together to get this document together. Obviously, it's cooperation among departments.
Mr. Holmes? Tropiano?
Nope.
I'm all set, thank you.
And if I haven't said it, of course, Mr. Zach Blake from the Department of Revenue, Mr. Kirsch, the rest of the staff came down here, dedicated their time. It was very helpful for the town of Wareham. We appreciate their time.
The last item we have on the agenda, just so everybody knows, it's not the last one, I think, actually. Consent agenda, I think we have anything, is liaison reports. I've also added the word initiatives to this. The reason I did is the board members at any time, if they have a project or something they want to go off and look into, basically at this point here, they would come back and report as Mrs. Whiteside did originally with the Lopes Playground. It gives any one of us the ability to go off and do some research, come up with some ideas, bring it back to the board, and the board can decide how to go forward with it and make recommendations. So I think this is an easy way to do this, and it gives all of us the ability, to actually sit there and try and come up with things that will work for them as well.
Okay, liaison and initiative reports. Mr. Titlebaum.
None this week, thank you.
Ms. Whiteside.
Yes, I have some. Commission on Disability information that is in front of you is incorrect.
Oops.
And although there was a meeting posted, there's only one member, so there cannot be any meetings.
That's liaison reports.
Yep. And I'm the liaison to it. Okay. I had another one. The library is working hard through the trustees and the Friends to come up with funds beyond those which have been suggested for the revenue adjustment budget. Even though I'm not on it, The recycling committee is, the liaison is Steve Holmes, but I hung around the dump a lot. Excuse me, the the
Really?
recycling center. It's a great place to get signatures, but it's also a really interesting place. School, I won't give you any news this week because that'll aggravate you. And the trash committee hasn't met because they're, despite what somebody said previously, there are no members. There's never been any setup, so I'll go from there.
Mr. Holmes?
Yeah, just on the initiative side, I did, to follow up from last week, on Friday I saw Mrs. Ekstrom and several members of the onset group while we were at the chief's swearing in. And obviously the conversation of the day was the Wareham racetrack. There is a meeting tomorrow night of the onset water commissioners. And there will be a great discussion there because they've actually signed off and allowed folks to use part of that land. However, there are several issues that were raised in Friday in that conversation that now has at least some members thinking twice. Mr. Bowen is continuing to research, and apparently there are some permits missing here. Once they started charging, and it went from a hobby to a commercial business. So there are several issues, and I've asked him to continue. I spoke to Rich on Friday about it. So I've asked him to, again, step up the process. He understands this is significantly important to the town. Especially now the weather's nice, this has to be done right. And I will clarify that we're not trying to hurt anybody's business in the town of Wareham. We welcome business, but we welcome business done right. You can't go out and start businesses without permits, especially something like this that affects so many. So that's an update. Hopefully next week, or hopefully within 2 weeks, Rich will have all the findings for us, and then I'll ask you to put it back on the agenda. Thank you.
Mr. Slavin? Myself, I'm all set. Mr. Slavin?
Let's see what I got. Met today with the MPO. I mentioned a couple weeks ago that the project for 6 and 28, due to the number of takings, was going to get moved back to 2017. We had a long discussion this afternoon there about it. We had support from 3 of the other selectmen from other towns. There's only 4 selectmen, so basically all 4 of us were all dismayed that the project was being pushed off because everybody knew there was going to be 300 plus takings or temporary easements, et cetera.
What, for 10 years?
It's a long time. Everybody agrees this is one of the major priority projects for them. They basically, at this point here, we're looking at October of 2016 to get the approval to move forward and actually contract out. Because 2017 starts October 1st of 2016.
Now, who were the other boards? You referenced 3 other boards?
No, it's the MPO. MPO is a
No, you said boards of selectmen.
3 other selectmen that are on that MPO board.
Oh.
There's 4 selectmen only
Board.
on this particular board. No, they're from all over.
Oh, they're from all over.
Yeah. There's nobody close here at all. So I did as much as I could. Unfortunately, I couldn't get them to change their mind. They were, but the reason is that because of the number of takings and because our project is $14 million, they are afraid that if they don't have everything in place, so when that trigger happens on the day they have to initiate, if they don't have it ready, they have a big hole and they can't fill it, and they lose that money that is assigned to them for that year. So rather than take the risk, this is what they've done. It's not a good answer. I'm not happy, but there's nothing we can really do about it except express that displeasure, and I reminded them that the next time someone dies on the road, it's on them.
Actually, we put a chart over here on the wall, and we'll put the person's name up here for every one between now and 2017.
I'll finish up, Peter. The other thing is I've asked the office to contact all the chairs of all the different committees to contact any of their members that are up at the end of June. And the reason being is it's always been left kind of funky that people maybe apply, maybe don't. They forget about it. So I've asked the chairs to get a hold of anyone that's there, make sure they want to reapply, Make sure the chair also sends us a note to the office if that person is an attendance issue or there's an issue with the person as well, so we can get this done. So come, basically the 1st of July, everything's in place and ready to go. Thank you. I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry, could you make sure they all have the, the handbook?
You could have asked me, I heard her.
You're
Could-
better than me.
Could you please make sure that
It's on the right side.
all
That's right.
committee members have the, the guidebook, the handbook?
I'll ask Janet. Janet sent out at least 3 emails over the last 2 months reminding people to make sure they have a handbook.
Yeah, well, they don't.
And I know they don't, because they don't bother to go get it.
See, she was shocked that I was so far away and heard that comment
See, we
before.
put you on the right side now.
Right. So you probably get me on the wrong side. Can
And the
you-
last piece is, the planning board last night voted to release lots 1 and 2, basically, on Rosebrook, which is where the bank is, and also where the hotel is, so therefore they could, the bank anyways is set, but the hotel can go out and get its construction loan to start that project as well. The foundation's in, but that was waiting for that. They should start that in about a week or so.
Outstanding.
So that's it for me for today.
It's a
beautiful job.
building to that bank that they
Yeah.
put up.
Okay,
It's
next,
a multi-use building, too.
we have the consent agenda, which we have nothing, no bills to sign or documents, so
Motion to
we
adjourn.
will, motion to adjourn. You do your thing.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed?
Yay.
Still
Thank you, everybody. I hope everybody enjoyed it.